In Russia are being closed. Authorities seek to outlaw Navalny's foundation for fighting corruption.
Irina Fatyanova shows me what was the center of opposition politics in St. Petersburg. But the front door of Alexei Navalny's headquarters is shuttered. The signs with his name have all gone. And through one dusty window, I can see a couple of chairs and a coat rack. Irina used to run this place, but this week she was forced to suspend all operations until a court decides whether Alexei Navalny's political network should be classed as extremist and banned.
That's a BBC's Sarah Rainsford. Navalny is perhaps the most outspoken critic of Russian President Putin. After surviving a poisoning that almost killed him, Navalny returned to Russia from hospitalization in Germany, and he was promptly tossed in prison. News and analysis, townhall.com. When much of the U.S. went into lockdown over a year ago, some speculated we'd see a baby boom. Well, the statistics suggest a baby bust instead.
Births have actually fallen dramatically in many states during the coronavirus outbreak. An Associated Press analysis of preliminary data from half the country indicates that nationally, even before the pandemic, the number of babies born in the U.S. was falling. But data from 25 states suggests a much steeper decline in 2020 into 2021, as the virus upended society and killed over 500,000 Americans. The data indicates births for all of 2020 were down 4.3% from 2019. Jeremy House reporting.
As many as one-third of Mexicans may have been exposed to the coronavirus by the end of 2020. That according to a study of random blood samples taken between February and December. More on these stories at townhall.com.
Let me tell you something you already know. The world ain't all sunshine and rainbows. It's a very mean and nasty place, and I don't care how tough you are, it will beat you to your knees and keep you there permanently if you let it. You, me, or nobody is gonna hit as hard as life. But it ain't about how hard you hit. It's about how hard you can get hit and keep moving forward. How much you can take and keep moving forward. That's how winning is done.
When the moon hits your eye like a big pizza pie, that's amore. When the world seems to shine like you've had too much wine, that's amore.
Back and better than ever on this Thursday morning. You're tuned in to the Big Talker 106.7 FM. Our program each and every day brought to you in part by the science, the data, and the experts. The most listened to, entertaining, and informative news talk program in all the land. Throughout the Cape Fear region, you can find us at BigTalkerFM.com. Our live audio feed available each and every day here through our website. On the digital platforms, you can subscribe to our new YouTube channel, find a video portion of the show also on Facebook and Twitter. Our call-in number is 910-299-7535. That's 910-299-7535. I don't know about you, but as we wake up, dark 30 each day, we get re-engaged in the news cycle after the day prior, no matter what you got going on. It seems to me it's around about 1 o'clock in the afternoon every day that I reach the part of the day, and it happens on a daily basis, particularly during the week, where I just start to tune out the news cycle. I always come back when you get up at 5 o'clock in the morning and you have a news talk radio program to guide for 3 hours up until 10 a.m., you tend to re-engage on a daily basis, but you're talking this, that, the other with all sorts of people. You follow the morning headlines. News typically breaks right before lunch, and well, yesterday was the situation going on up in Elizabeth City in regards to the police body camera footage that we'll talk about in just a bit surrounding the shooting from last week. But I don't know about you. I try and stay busy as we get the day going. And as Morgan Freeman so famously said in Shawshank Redemption, you either get busy living or you get busy dying. I got you know what to do. I can't just be sitting on social media or following the news sites all day. I got stuff to do. We got dad duties. Try to be a decent spouse. Got some side hustles going on for now. Though we heard from Grandpa Joe yesterday, of course, re-engaging in this piece of legislation known as the PRO Act that would love to put Americans just back into the old 9-to-5 way of life that we once knew, the factory worker mindset, sort of the way our education has been for the last 100 years. So we did a ball game tonight, and after the program, we'll disengage from the news cycle because we've got a ride out to Atlanta after the program to get set for college baseball over the weekend. And we're bringing the fam, which I'm really looking forward to because my sister and brother-in-law and their kids live up in Kennesaw, so we'll be spending the weekend with them. The little cousins getting together. In fact, as I'm walking out the door this morning, go in to give Sophia a little kiss on the cheek as she's sleeping so gently and innocently in her little room in the house with a little nightlight on. Give her a little kiss, and I'm putting together some coffee and some snacks for the broadcast here today, and all of a sudden I hear her little feet stompering out through the hallway. What are you doing awake? It's 5 o'clock in the morning. I can't wait to go to Maddie and Emma's house, her two little cousins. I'm like, well, we're going. Just go back to sleep. And when you wake up, Daddy will be home, and we're taking off. That's what I'm living for, folks. Listening to Grandpa Joe all day, or some of these Looney Tunes on the news cycle, you either get busy living or you get busy dying. Sitting on your keyboard and your Facebook page all day, wondering what's going on, wanting to engage in conversation, debate, arguments with, somebody you went to high school with 35 years ago. No thanks. So I was a bit distracted last night because we had a ball game over at UNCW, and that got me fired up, to say the least, the way that shook out. Your Seahawks knocked off my Chanticleers again, 7-6, the final score. Never have I ever, in talking with our head coach, Gary Gilmore, he's been the head coach at Coastal Carolina for 26 years. He and former UNCW coach Mark Scaff, really good longtime friends. Coach Scaff was over at UNCW for 20-plus years. Never has he ever, along with me, in the 20 years that I've played and have followed the game. Coach Gilmore has been around the game for 40 years, played in college at Coastal, and returned to his alma mater a couple of decades back to lead the program. Of course, they win the College World Series, whole dang thing, in 2016. 6-5 the score, bottom of the seventh, runner on third, 2 outs. Our pitcher on the mound throws a beautiful slider in the dirt. Hitter for UNCW chases the pitch, but with 2 strikes, the game of baseball, the catcher has to catch it cleanly, or the hitter has an opportunity to reach first base if he can get to first base before the catcher throws him out. Well, ball hits the dirt, kicks up on the catcher, tying run on third, 2 outs in the inning. The baseball gets lodged in between the chest and the chest protector of our catcher. He's looking around for the baseball. He can't find it. It's under his chest protector. He's standing 2 feet away from home plate. Tying run from third scores. Runner at home plate reaches first base. UNCW scores another run in the 8th, and they win it 7-6. Never have I ever seen something like that. 20-plus years playing baseball and being around the game. Heck, 30-plus years. Holy smokes. So I was a little amped up last night. Actually had to have a cold one or two at around 11:30 as I rolled in. Still fuming, obviously, this morning, because when things aren't going your way, they're not going your way. In that game that mirrors the way of life in so many different instances that I can recall through my days on the ball field. And we're watching it play out right now. But the beauty of this ball game, we get to go do it again tomorrow. And we'll be in Atlanta for the weekend and looking forward to that. Because I need to be distracted after trying my darndest last night to completely overlook Grandpa Joe's speech to Congress and the nation. Of course, the vaccinated elites in Washington, D.C., with the masks on behind them, Also making mention, of course, for the first time in the history of the United States of America, 2 women, God help us, behind Geriatric Joe, clapping and cackling. One made of plastic, the other, well, we all know her rise to prominence. I caught the Cliff Notes this morning, and I get it. People didn't like Donald Trump, his personality, his ego. But you're okay, perfectly okay, with an elite who has spent his entire career in Washington, D.C., apparently trying to bring some ideas over 48 years to the table that would help improve some of the situations that we've going on in our country. You know, and what better way to do that, of course? 50 years in Washington, D.C. Telling us yesterday that we are going to invest in American families and jobs for our people. And we're going to do it through infrastructure investment that goes to families. Any opposition, of course, to this ridiculous rhetoric, any opposition will be met with resistance, because how the hell can anyone be against investing in American families? I mean, folks, these people are slick. There's a reason why they're able to win over many in America, because most people don't pay attention. Most people, as Bill Maher said the other night, so accurately, most people are gullible. And it's real easy to win people over with a little compassion, a little empathy. Use a couple of cute buzzwords, and hell, you're not Donald Trump, so you can ramrod anything through the pipeline. And at this point, most of the American people are happy to just grab their ankles and take it. Whether it's good for them or not, at least it's not Donald Trump. He's a gentle old man. He wears a mask, and he just wants you to be a good citizen for the government. But don't worry, Uncle Sam has got your back. He's got you covered. Amazes me, folks, how people out there just don't see it. They are either unwilling or unable to connect the dots, and it's really, frankly, it's sad. It's funny and sad, but it's mostly sad. Kind of like a psychotic Joker funny. What do you know? Joe Biden laid out his wish list last night. And here's a new one. He wants the wealthy to pay their fair share. I'm not sure I ever heard that before. I mean, every time I see him or hear him speak, the first thing that comes to mind is presidential. His qualities are so presidential. A leader in every sense of the word. I'm not sure how you did not get a chill up the side of your leg last night as he spoke. You had the cool New York cat, Senator Chuck Schumer, slouching in the chair. Cackling Kamala and Plastic Nancy behind him with their masks on, fully vaccinated with their masks. Presidential. What a guy. He's going to make the rich pay their fair share. On to a more serious note, because what you saw last night was anything but a Saturday night skit. Well, speaking of SNL, have we heard any impersonators of Joe Biden yet on the formerly known as a comedy show on Saturday nights that no one has watched in decades? Because we knew Mr. Baldwin was out on a weekly basis with his lips pouting and his blonde rug and the orange face to poke fun at Donald Trump on a weekly basis. No Grandpa Joe yet. I'm sure we could find some geriatric out there. Just don't go to New York State, because most of those folks, of course, were sent back to the retirement homes and Well, we all know how that played out in New York. Not that there's anything to see there. I mean, Emmy award-winning governor publishes a book on leadership, and heck, now apparently he is leading the weekly conference calls in regards to COVID with the other governors across the country. I mean, the Emmy award-winning governor himself has been put in charge by our president, who just oozes presidential qualities when he gets up there and speaks to the American people. I mean, all you have to do is listen to the news and they'll tell you. And the rich will pay their fair share, and therefore your problems will go away. Because only if you put your trust in the government will jobs be created and will our societal issues disappear, or something like that. You know, he's only got 50 years of experience to showcase all that he's done to help in those situations. Lord help us. 20 minutes past the hour here on the Big Talker FM. I caught the Cliff Notes. Thankfully, I was working last night. Didn't get a chance to catch the speech. 100 days in office. Folks, we're going to be in store for a long 4 years. But at least he's not Donald Trump, right? 910-299-7535. Our friend Pete Callender from the mountains is going to join us in just a bit. Tragic news from the western part of the state to report this morning, and we'll get to that after the timeout. We'll hear from Pete in just a bit, connecting the mountains to the coast as we do a couple times each month. Does some great work, has a podcast that we'll touch on just a bit. He covered a good topic, a topic that has been at the forefront over the past week in regards to the shooting up in Elizabeth City and some laws that are in place here in the state of North Carolina that are a bit different as compared to other states across the country as it relates to body camera footage worn by police officers. And we'll get some clarity on that law and what led the judge to decide why he's pumping the brakes in immediately releasing that footage from last week up in the northeastern part of the state. We'll hear from Pete from the mountains in just a bit. The Mountain Boy. Our buddy Andrew Donaldson at Ordinary Times Magazine, also with us in the second hour of our program. Looking forward to that discussion, as always, with my buddy Andy out in Cumberland County, living in the Fayetteville area. Those discussions ahead over the next hour or so. Your calls at 910-299-7535.
Parents, how old were you when you paid off your student loan? Are you still paying for it? Student debt can be crippling, and today it's even more important to keep debt in check. Help your student build a brighter financial future by encouraging them to attend Cape Fear Community College for the first 2 years. CFCC costs thousands less than four-year schools, and classes in our university transfer program are accepted at four-year schools across the state and beyond. Help your kids get a head start academically and financially at CFCC. Learn more at cfcc.edu.
My name's John Hennett. I'm a commercial real estate broker with Eastern Carolina's Commercial Real Estate here in Wilmington, and I also have a side hustle as a residential real estate appraiser. If you have any interest in listing, selling, buying, or investing in real estate, or if you're just curious about real estate, give me a call at 910-619-3430. Be happy to talk to you. But the reason I'm here today is to talk to you about the small businesses in our community. I think it's important that we all share our community pride for our hometown here in Wilmington. They are the lifeblood. And collectively, they are the largest employer in our community, and we need to take care of them. Like Caprice Bistro at 10 Market Street, my favorite restaurant for me and my wife. Patricia and Terry Morty have been in business over 20 years, and they make food with love. So I'd encourage you to visit the Caprice Bistro at 10 Market Street next time you have a special occasion. Remember, if you have any real estate questions, feel free to give me a call at 910-619-3430. Thank you.
Acoustic wave therapy at the Frank Institute is a revolutionary treatment for inflammation, issues of blood flow, and is a solution for the constant suffering of chronic pain. Through the localized transmission of sound waves, stem cells are stimulated to bring about restored blood flow, vascular regeneration, and the disbursement of pain receptors to affected areas. If you've been told that your issues could not be treated without surgery or prescription, give us a call. Non-invasive, non-surgical, and prescription-free. Acoustic wave therapy is only available at the Frank Institute. Call today, 910-679-8534, and ask about acoustic wave therapy.
Want to see inside more than 40 of the area's finest new homes for free? Visit the 35th Annual Parade of Homes presented by the Wilmington Cape Fear Home Builders Association. Homes are open from noon to 5 p.m. this weekend, May 1st and 2nd. Be sure to stop by the 2021 Showcase Community River Lights. Visit WilmingtonParadeOfHomes.com for details and tour homes virtually. This event is possible thanks to Builders First Source, First Bank, Piedmont Natural Gas, Star News Media, and Trust Builder Group.
Here, Tom Goolsby on the Joe Catenacci Show.
People with common sense know that the entire theory of socialism is one big lie.
The Big Talker 106.7 FM.
I am State Farm Agent Rob Renz, and I want to help you get to a better place. Visit us online at ilminsurance.com. That's ilminsurance.com. Like a good neighbor, State Farm is there.
If you're tuned into the video portion of our show through YouTube, Facebook, and Twitter this morning, you see that I'm rocking out my Easy Hippie tie-dye shirt today. Brought to you by my friends over at Signal Fire Media. My buddy Rob Renz, Matt Milot, Evan Anderson every Monday. They're on our radio station from 6 until 7 p.m. Talking with the men and women of our armed forces, veterans of our country, stories of successful transition from life in the military to civilian life, living with purpose. Great to have them as friends of our program and friends outside of what we do on a day-to-day basis as well. And personally, I love the shirt, Easy Hippie, and Rob has a good story behind that as a guy who has beautiful flowing gold locks from Southern California originally, so it plays into that part just a bit. Rob has just a different way of looking at things, along with Matt and Evan. Evan, active duty still out in the Army, working in PSYOPs. Boy, I would not like that guy to analyze me. Here in North Carolina, a tragic situation played out Wednesday in the mountains. One deputy, sheriff's deputy, killed. A second was injured after a deadly 12-hour standoff at a home in Watauga County. Deputies were shot while responding to a welfare check at home in Boone after the homeowner and his family did not go to work or respond to phone calls. Sergeant Chris Ward with the Watauga County Sheriff's Office died from his gunshot wounds after he was taken to Johnson City Medical Center just over the mountain range in Tennessee. Another deputy, Logan Fox, was shot. Still no word on his condition. Tragic situation playing out in the western part of the state yesterday, and of course from the mountains towards the coast, a much different situation playing out as calls continue for the release of police body camera footage after a man was killed by sheriff's deputies last week. And, we'll touch on this more when Andrew Donaldson joins us, but we keep hearing this word accountability thrown around as it relates to law enforcement. Of course, never the perp or those acting in a criminal manner. There are never discussions around accountability amongst everyday people, only law enforcement. I get it. They're sworn to uphold the law and live by a standard that's above the rest. But when you throw this word accountability around and you think about the tragic situation that played out in the mountains yesterday, it's easy to sit behind a freaking keyboard and talk about accountability. No accountability, though, when folks throw Molotov cocktails through storefront windows and loot buildings. No accountability there. Heck, most of those people don't even get arrested and have to serve any sort of consequences for their actions. Accountability? Give me a freaking break. Get behind your keyboard and share some opinions. You know, with these videos, with the situation that played out in the western part of the state Wednesday, well, the fact of the matter is, these cops, when you're dealing with real people under tremendous stress in a life or death situation, as Andy put it, accountability is far from a clear-cut thing. It's not hard, folks. Turn off the TV. So up there in Elizabeth City, a judge yesterday hears the petition calling for the release of the body camera footage. And the debate continues here in North Carolina over North Carolina body camera law. Well, the king, of course, made his position known yesterday, voicing his support for changing the law surrounding the availability of law enforcement video. Of course, we remind you that the king served as the attorney general of our state for 16 years. Also part of a Democrat majority within our state legislature prior to his time as the Attorney General. And not that I was engaged or involved as much in the political conversation. In fact, I was not even living in North Carolina back in the day when Roy Ray, the king, started to rise to prominence within state politics. But I'm just going to go out there on a limb and say, well, back in the day, as he was passing minimum sentencing laws, failing to update and get the backlog of DNA tests put through as far as rape kits go, while he was not doing any of that as the state's attorney general, not really sure if he was championing positions like he is today in calling for changes to the law surrounding the availability of law enforcement video. State Senator Danny Britt, who will actually join us next week on Tuesday of next week, he had a few counterpoints that he made yesterday, and we'll share them with you when we get back from the bottom of the hour news break as it relates to videos like the one showing the encounter from last week in Elizabeth City with a man who ended up getting shot and killed by police. Law enforcement, the prosecutor, saying yesterday that, the video shows that this man, Andrew Brown, was driving at deputies with his car before they opened fire. Brown's family, that caught a 20-second clip of the video footage, said he had his hands on the steering wheel when police shot him. Well, the truth will ultimately come out. We know that. And there is a need for transparency. There is a need for disclosure. In fact, even the sheriff up there says he would have liked the full release of the video. Well, State Senator Danny Britt has a different take than what we heard from our king yesterday as far as, why this law is in place. And we'll get to that after this news timeout here on the Big Talker FM. Our phone number, if you'd like to call in, 910-299-7535. Pete Callender from the mountains will join us. The Mountain Boy. The Mountain Man. Just after 8 o'clock, Andrew Donaldson out of Fayetteville, Cumberland County, at Ordinary Times Magazine with us in 1 hour from now.
Keeping Wilmington informed. The Big Talker 106.7 FM WFBT, Carolina Beach.
Hello, I'm Jeff Rivenbark with WWA News. Authorities say a North Carolina sheriff's deputy has died and another has been wounded after a shooting at a home led to a standoff that continued late into the night. The Watauga County Sheriff's Office said deputies were dispatched to a home in the Boone area yesterday after the homeowner and his family didn't appear at work or answer telephone calls. A sheriff's statement says deputies entered the home and were fired on. According to authorities, a deputy died at a hospital where he was taken after being shot. Authorities said the second deputy was still at the scene and law officers had the home surrounded after nightfall with what it called an active scene. In the case of a man shot and killed by deputies in Elizabeth City, the body camera video of the killing of Andrew Brown Jr. will not be released publicly for at least 30 days. While Judge Jeffrey Foster said the video was of compelling public interest, he worried public release of the video could harm the ongoing investigation into the case and pose a threat to administration of justice. The decision came yesterday, shortly after North Carolina prosecutors said that Andrew Brown Jr. had hit law enforcement officers with his car before they opened fire. Apollo 11 astronaut Michael Collins has died at the age of 90. He orbited the moon alone while Neil Armstrong and Buzz Aldrin made their historic first steps on the moon in 1969. Collins' family said in a statement that he died yesterday from cancer. While Collins traveled some 238,000 miles to the moon and came within 69 miles, he never set foot on the surface. And we now know the release date for a new movie that has been filming in the Cape Fear. The horror movie The Black Phone by Scott Derrickson is set to release in theaters on January 28, 2022. One of the writers confirmed this on Twitter yesterday. The movie is an adaptation of Joe Hill's short story. The flick stars Ethan Hawke. For more on these stories, head over to WWAY-TV3.com. I'm Jeff Rivenbark. Have a great day.
Happy Thursday, everybody. I'm WWAY meteorologist Ramel Carpenter with your Storm Track 3 forecast. We're going to see more dry and quiet conditions out there across the Cape Fear, and a nice warm-up on the way as well. We'll top off in the middle and upper 80s, close to 90 degrees well inland of the coast, and along the coastline, we're going to top off in the upper 70s, close to 80s. Not a bad beach day by any means. And the sunshine continues as we head into the upcoming weekend as well. Temperatures tonight are going to drop back down into the middle 60s, pretty mild, with partly cloudy skies. Get your full forecast on WWAY and WWAY-TV3.com.
This news and weather is brought to you by Two Men and a Truck. For your free quote, go to twomenandatruck.com. twomenandatruck.com.
All right, if you missed my opening monologue, as it were, to kick off the program surrounding what we witnessed last night, caught the Cliff Notes. I was at work, in all honesty, so didn't get a chance to listen to our President of the United States. That's the first word that actually comes to mind when I think and see and hear of Joe Biden when he speaks. It's the first word. It's presidential. Very presidential in the way he addresses the people, a compassionate and empathetic man. And I mean, we should all be very thankful when we have a guy who truly does care. See, I didn't even have to watch the reaction from the news outlets out there. I gave you the commentary without even reading or listening to the entirety of the speech. It's almost like you can predict how people will react in the media to this fearless leader of ours. Our fully vaccinated fearless leader. So yesterday, a judge up in the northeastern part of the state, Elizabeth City, I'm tired of trying to pronounce the county, Pasquotank County, I believe it was, Watauga County, out in the western part of the state. See, I'm pretty good. Actually, I scored a 23 just a moment ago on a Twitter game that asked you how Southern you were based on the food that you've tried. I scored a 23 out of 30. Man, you might as well just... I am a retired Yankee, by the way. They've disowned me totally, and I'm okay with it. I got no reason to go up that way anymore. New York City, not appealing as it was once. I didn't even go to Yankee Stadium, and that's what really makes me sick to my stomach, actually. Loved that place as a kid. That was my heaven as a little kid, going up to the Bronx. You grew up real quick, by the way, as well, walking in those streets. As an 8-year-old, Dad, you're going too fast. Well, you got to catch up. Keep your head down and keep moving. So we've got this debate here in our state over body camera law here in North Carolina. We heard our king, as I mentioned before the break, voice his support for changing the law surrounding the availability of law enforcement video. And a reminder that our king, who you elected to a second term this past November, I'm sure not many of you who are tuned into this program, but North Carolinians from the mountains to the coast, everywhere in between, felt that the governor has done a great job in his response to COVID and another very empathetic, mild-mannered, and well-spoken man. So the king, by the way, who served as the state's attorney general for 16 years, prior to that, a member of the state legislature, had all of this time in office to push efforts regarding reforms to law enforcement or the ability for the public to gain access to footage involving a law enforcement officer. Had 20-plus years to champion these causes. Instead, was working on other issues like mandatory or minimum sentencing laws in our state, or inability to, as I had highlighted, to get up to date on the backlog in testing rape kits in North Carolina. Well, he wants to change the law surrounding the availability of law enforcement video, and it's only because Republicans are standing in the way he can't get that done. Those evil Republicans at it again. State Senator Danny Britt, he'll be with us on Tuesday of next week. He argues and says, videos like the one showing Andrew Brown's encounter with police should remain private until a possible trial, because he believes releasing information to the public could make jury selection difficult and possibly lead to a mistrial down the road if criminal charges are ever presented. And I think, right, that's where we've hit a snag in this conversation surrounding body camera footage on law enforcement officers. I mean, there's need for balance between the public's right to know and a potential defendant's right to a fair trial. The slobbering media, of course, because they would love to push a narrative. No, couldn't be. The media want to showcase something so they can frame it one way to change public sentiment. No way. Not the media. They have ethics and standards. Of course, the public wants to know if those sworn to uphold the law are going beyond their call of duty. But the question is, do they need to know right away? Or do they want to know right away? I have many wants. Oftentimes, the needs overshadow the wants in one's life. Ideally, if you allow the process to play out, then ultimately we will all see the footage. In this country, we had once thought that the person who may potentially be charged with a crime is innocent until proven guilty, right? In the court of law, not the court of Twitter or public opinion. So what are the chances of a defendant getting a fair shake in front of a jury of their peers if public opinion is already swaying one way or the other? Isn't that the purpose of the judicial system? But I guess in a time when we have parts of our country that want to defund or completely abolish the police, I mean, you might as well take the courts with them, and then we can just all come around yonder into the middle of the courtyard and, hey, That man over there is guilty. Let's make an example of him in the middle of the courtyard. We'll have mob rule. Is that where we're going? Or is that what people want? So State Senator Danny Britt just bringing another side of the story that you rarely hear, of course, in the news media, because we have to know, right? We have to know right now what played out in Elizabeth City, because we need reform and accountability. Prosecutor yesterday said the man was driving at deputies with his car, and that's why they opened fire. His family contends that he had his hands on the steering wheel and was driving away. Well, the truth will ultimately come out. And ultimately, it's a personal thing going on right now with that family, the law enforcement officers involved, over here 30,000 feet away on our keyboards behind our profile pic. We can make all sorts of noise and create all sorts of chaos on the Twitterverse. Yeah, there's a need for transparency. There's a need for disclosure. Hell, the sheriff up there said he would want full release of the video. The judge says, we're going to get the video out. It's going to be between 30 and 45 days. The family will see the full video in the next week. So the truth will come out. And in my mind, this will play out the way it should. Not in the court of public opinion, but in the court of law. In fact, those evil Republicans within the North Carolina General Assembly have actually unveiled legislation this week in regards to criminal justice reform. Republicans in the state Senate have come out with a proposal calling for the creation of 2 new databases of law enforcement officers who have been disciplined for misconduct. Accountability. 14 minutes in front of the hour, Pete Callender from the mountains going to join us to give us an update on some of the news coming out of the State General Assembly in Raleigh. State Senate also passed legislation this week, sponsored by one of our local senators, Bill Rabin, to rein in on emergency powers by the governor, no matter who the governor is in the future, along with the current king in Ray Roy. One of our other local state senators, Michael Lee, yesterday was alongside parents who have signed up their kids for the Opportunity Scholarship Program. This is a program that is designed to help kids of lower socioeconomic status attend a school of their choice with tuition money for private school. Senator Lee of New Hanover County, evil Republican, who wants everyone to drink the water and die. At least that's what Harper Peterson and his crew were claiming back in 2017, when for every single day for 156 days, the conversation was surrounding Gen X in our water. I'm not hearing much from those folks these days surrounding the cleanliness of our drinking water. We're holding people accountable. Well, in fact, our State Department of Quality Director, of Environmental Quality Director, was so good at his job during that whole chaos. Well, he's been bumped up to the federal level, leading Grandpa Joe's environmental agency up there. Gets nothing done here at the state level and somehow is promoted to a job in Washington, D.C. Government at its finest, folks. Senator Lee and parents of Opportunity Scholarship recipients held a news conference yesterday in regard to a bill that would increase income eligibility and award amounts to help students from low and middle income families attend schools that best fit their educational needs. I mean, how dare they move forward with a proposal that would help low and middle income families attend schools that best fit their educational needs. Every single Democrat, including our king, is opposed to this proposal. Pete Callender will discuss when we get back from the top of the hour news break. 910-299-7535. Good morning, caller. Hope all is well.
Hey, man, it's great. Listen, looks like there's been a lot of lawyers going to Arizona lately to represent the Democratic Party. And I don't know if you're keeping track of it or not, but Cyber Ninjas went to court yesterday because the Democratic Party tried to put a restraining order on Cyber Ninjas to stop the counting and verify, or not the counting, but the audits. And thankfully, yesterday, the judge denied it. So everybody keep their fingers crossed. Let's see if the audits continue.
Yeah, that's going out there in Arizona. I haven't really been paying much attention to it. We're grabbing our ankles right now and enjoying the enema that's being given to us by our president. What a presidential figure, by the way, Joe Biden is. He just oozes presidential traits when he speaks, doesn't he? Thanks, Mark, for the update in Maricopa County, Arizona, as it relates to an audit that is taking place in regards to the 2020 presidential election. Not that that would get any sort of national coverage looking at that because everything was on the up and up, right? So why look into it? We're 10 minutes in front of the hour here on the Big Talker 106.7 FM.
Since 1964, Hustler Turf has been engineering and making the original zero-turn lawnmowers right here in the USA with U.S. and global parts. Professional landscapers and homeowners rely on Hustler's trademark smooth track steering, their durable welded steel decks, and their premium reinforced seats that provide a superior ride and ultra comfort. Once you drive a Hustler, you'll immediately feel the difference. And let me tell you something else. You'll actually look forward to mowing your grass. These top-of-the-line mowers allow you to mow faster and more efficiently. For professionals, that means more money in your pocket. For homeowners, that means spending more time with your family. If something should ever happen to your Hustler mower, or you simply need a replacement part like a new blade, help is never far away with Hustler's gigantic network of over 1,000 dealers nationwide. Visit hustlerturf.com to find one near you. That's HUSTLER turf.com.
Hi, this is Justin Humphreys from the Humphreys Law Firm on Eastwood Road. The Humphreys Law Firm is located in Lumina Station, Wilmington, North Carolina, practices civil litigation, intellectual property, commercial, and residential real estate. Please give us a call at 910-332-0721 or visit us on our website, which is www.humphreysfirm.law. You can also listen to me every Thursday from 6 to 7 p.m. on the Big Talker 106.7 FM.
Do you or someone you love suffer from back pain, poor circulation, or struggle to get a good night's sleep? Do you just need help getting into or out of your chair? US Med Express is Wilmington's leading supplier of Golden Technology lift and sleep chairs, carrying a variety of models in our showroom at 1733 Dawson Street. Our chairs lead the industry in power lift recliner features and advances in technology. Our chairs are FDA certified as medical devices, which means it's 100% tax deductible and helps with a number of medical conditions, including arthritis, poor circulation, and sleep apnea. Give us a call today at 910-500-6162 or stop by and experience our chairs for yourself at 1733 Dawson Street. That's 910-500-6162. 1733 Dawson Street in Wilmington. US Med Express.
We interrupt to bring you this horrible news. Experts say we'll see larger numbers and different breeds of mosquitoes to wreak havoc on your backyard, making this year one of the worst.
Anopheles and Culex variety mosquito.
Yeah. Experts also say there is only one defense against this onslaught. Call the Bugman from Bugno Pest Control.
That's Mr. Bugno to you, pal.
Bugno Pest Control's mosquito-killing formula keeps your yard bug-free. Call Bugno Pest Control, 910-367-2501, or visit BugnoPestControl.com. Take back your yard.
As we round out our first hour of the program, our friend Pete Callender from the western part of the state joins us just after 8 o'clock. We'll discuss this debate surrounding the North Carolina body camera law. He'll break it down for us and give us what the law states, and calls, of course, by folks like the King, Governor Cooper, to change the legislation. State Senator Danny Britt, made a counter argument that I think makes a lot of sense. But common sense, logic, government, they don't actually necessarily add up. That's why about 1 o'clock every afternoon, I just get burnt out from the news cycle. Take a break, step away, live some life. 85 degrees and sunny yesterday. Stopped by my Grammy's house. Get busy living or get busy dying. The news will still be there when you get back, by the way. And in fact, I was so distracted yesterday because we were in the middle of a ball game as Grandpa Joe entered the halls of Congress to deliver his first address to the nation 100 days in as our commander-in-chief. I caught some of the cliff notes. And, hey, for those out there that, were not necessarily tickled to death because you did not think the former commander-in-chief was presidential because of his ego, because of his brash way of going about things, his personality. It's amazing to me those same folks are completely okay with an elite, someone who spent his entire career in Washington, D.C. In fact, he's come up with so many ideas over his 50 years in office, he decided to run for president. Because all of those issues that he's been addressing for 50 years, well, have only gotten worse in many instances, while government has continued to grow. Not really sure how this all adds up. 50 years in office, using the same old tired ideas to push this, that, and the other, and somehow you're elected to the highest office in the land. And somehow, some way, these same tired old ideas that you're bringing to the table will help improve some of the situations that have been going on in our country for the 50 years that you've been in office as an elected official. I mean, what better way to fix many of our problems as a society, because we need government to fix everything for us. What better way to do that than to hire somebody who's already had 50 years on the job? Tell us that the families in our country need more government investment. And we're going to frame it so that it's investment in infrastructure. You, the family, are infrastructure to our country. It's going to families. And how could you oppose such a thing? Because how the hell can anyone be against investing in American families? I mean, these people are good. They're slick. Large part, many people don't pay attention. They know that, or gullible. It's real easy to win over the masses with a little compassion, a little empathy. A couple cute buzzwords here and there, and hell, you're not Donald Trump. So you can ramrod anything through the pipeline, and we'll take it. It's good for you. At this point, most of the American people are happy to just grab their ankles and take it, whether it's good for them or not. Because he's a gentle old man. I mean, who wears a mask? He just wants you to be a good citizen for the government. And don't worry about anything else. Uncle Sam has got you covered. We've got your back. Folks out there, believe it. It's pretty amazing. The folks who were once born and bred from the counterculture are the ones now that are pushing big centralized government on everyone. Huh. Many folks just unwilling or unable to connect the dots. It's funny, sad. Sad because you can see it all out there right in front of your eyes. Don't have to look too deep. Well, that's the funny part, I guess. Or is that the kind of the Joker psychotic laugh funny, along with the sad? I mean, it's coming from a guy. I mean, every time I see him or hear him speak, the first thing that comes to my mind is presidential. His qualities are so presidential. A leader. In every sense of the word. I'm not really sure how you did not get a chill up the side of your leg last night as he spoke. Because, I mean, I was on the edge of my seat this morning catching the Cliff Notes. And guess what? One idea that I don't know if I've ever heard before. He's going out on a limb here with this idea that the wealthy are going to pay their fair share. And they're going to pay their fair share so the government can invest in American families. Just be a good citizen for the government, and everything else will be okay. He wants the wealthy to pay their fair share. I'm just never sure. I'm not sure if I've ever heard that before. The wealthy are going to pay their fair share, and your problems will go away. Just give us a little bit more of your freedom so we can have a little bit more influence, spend a little bit more money, because it's the wealthy who will pay, and you will benefit because of it. Lord help us. Pete Callender joins us from the western part of the state after the break.
Keeping Whiteville informed. The Big Talker 106.7 FM WFBT, Carolina Beach.
Exercise is hard. So is maintaining a healthy diet.
Tax hikes, killing the Keystone Pipeline's 11,000 jobs, and by going after state right-to-work laws. Heritage Foundation's Genevieve Wood.
This idea that there's going to be free college and we're going to have higher minimum wage laws and we're going to do all these things and it's going to be free and it's not going to cost you anything. I think if any average American sits down and really thinks through that, they know it's not true.
GOP Senator Tim Scott accusing the president and his Democrat allies of dividing the country despite all of their lofty rhetoric about unity.
Scott says nowhere in American life is there needed a candid discussion more than when it comes to the issue of race.
But powerful forces want to pull us apart.
In his response to President Biden's speech to Congress, Scott accused Democrats of deliberately ignoring progress that's been made on racial justice to justify what he calls a power grab in Washington.
Hear me clearly. America is not a racist country.
Scott, the Senate's only black Republican, is considered a likely contender for his party's presidential nomination in 2024. Bob Agnew reporting.
Senior aides to New York Governor Andrew Cuomo repeatedly blocked release of the state's nursing home COVID death toll, working to conceal the figures for at least 5 months. That's according to the New York Times, which conducted interviews and reviewed pertinent documents. Cuomo has denied any wrongdoing, has been under pressure to resign. That's something that he insists he will not do. Stock futures higher on Wall Street. Dow futures up 142 points. NASDAQ futures ahead 136. More on these stories at townhall.com.
Pounds and pounds of fur. Our hairballs have hairballs.
Our cat Mama, she's 10 years old. She has dandruff and an oily coat.
I have 2 cats, Zippy and Daisy. Daisy sheds like crazy.
If you love your pets as much as I do, you want to do what's best for them to live long, healthy, happy lives.
DINOVITE.com. I just tried this wonderful Catalicious Dynavite for cats, and my cat has been on it for 2 weeks. She is not scratching anymore. She's not chewing anymore. It is just the best.
I was thrilled when I heard Dynavite for cats was coming out because I'd seen the changes in my dog. To introduce my cat to Dynavite, I took the advice from Dynavite and put their food on top of just a scoop in the bowl, just to get them used to it, because I know if I even switch one little thing, they put their nose up to it. There was not one problem.
Dynavite for life.
You won't believe how happy your cat will be.
DINOVITE.com.
India's foreign secretary says there has been an outpouring of solidarity with his country facing a coronavirus crisis.
Mr. Shringler said over 40 countries had now pledged to send India the items it most urgently needs. He mentioned Western nations such as the United States and France, and also neighbours including Bhutan and Bangladesh. He described India's need for vaccines as very, very pressing. India, a global vaccine manufacturer, would from now on use whatever it produced for its own domestic programme, he said. And if it could source vaccines from other countries, it would do that too, he added.
The BBC's Jill McGivering. China has now launched the main module of its first permanent space station that will host astronauts long term. It's the latest success for a program that's realized a number of ambitious goals in recent years. The so-called Heavenly Harmony module blasted into space atop a Long March 5B rocket. News and analysis, townhall.com. Colorado Republican Congresswoman Lauren Boebert displayed a thermal space blanket similar to those distributed to migrants held at detention facilities at the southern border during President Biden's address to Congress on Wednesday.
A spokesperson for Congresswoman Boebert said that she was trying to highlight the recent surge of migrants at the U.S.-Mexico border. Boebert tweeted about 30 times, providing real-time reactions to Mr. Biden's address, including multiple missives questioning the social distancing measures in place during the event, making references to the president's son, Hunter, and highlighting the increase in immigration since the inauguration. Boebert, a firebrand first-term lawmaker, was among a handful of House Republicans in attendance at the speech, which was significantly scaled back from previous presidential addresses because of the COVID-19 pandemic. Bernie Bennett, Washington.
And it looks like Wall Street's heading for a higher open later this morning. Right now, the Dow futures up 136 points. NASDAQ futures 140 points higher. More on these stories at townhall.com.
The champ is here! The champ is here! The champ is here! The champ is here!
Let me tell you something you already know. The world ain't all sunshine and rainbows. It's a very mean and nasty place, and I don't care how tough you are, it will beat you to your knees and keep you there permanently if you let it. You, me, or nobody is going to hit as hard as life. But it ain't about how hard you hit. It's about how hard you can get hit and keep moving forward. How much you can take and keep moving forward. That's how winning is done.
When the moon hits your eye like a big pizza pie, that's amore. When the world seems to shine like you've had too much wine, that's amore.
7 minutes past the top of the hour. Portions of our program brought to you by the science, the data, and the experts. Each and every day here on the Big Talker 106.7 FM. You can find us at BigTalkerFM.com. Our live audio stream available through our website. Video portion of the program on YouTube, Facebook, and Twitter. Subscribe to our new YouTube channel. Our mobile app through your handheld device can take us wherever you may be by searching Big Talker 106.7 FM in the Apple iStore for your iPhone and the Google Play Store for your Android. Pete Callender with us, the Mountain Man. Pete, it's a pleasure, my friend. Good morning.
Hey, good morning. How are you?
I'm doing well, and thankfully, had some side gigs and side hustles that I'm enjoying while it lasts because of legislation in Washington that may soon, change those sorts of things. But nonetheless, enjoying that so I could put food on my table, though apparently last night from what we heard from the President of the United States, the government will be happy to put food on our table so long as we're good citizens and take what they give us.
Yeah, the era of big government is back, and apparently government is us. This is one of those, cliches that I started noticing cropping up in debates with folks on the left. I guess it's an attempt to try to make me feel responsible for the policies I oppose. I view it as a form of sort of gaslighting, and in watching the state, well, not State of the Union, the address to the joint session of Congress, right? Don't call it a State of the Union. I am struck, as I often am, by Democrat demands for unity that are always at their core demands for surrender. They use these two demands like they coat one with the other. I'm perplexed. You have a Senate that's 50-50 split. You've got a one-vote majority, and Biden is up there last night talking as if he's got some sort of overwhelming majoritarian mandate, and that did not happen. But again, when you call for unity as a Democrat, it means everybody agree with me.
And, on that note, how could you argue against investing in American families? This is what we're doing, right? We are investing in the infrastructure of American families. How can anyone in their right mind be opposed to something like that?
Right. It really is a remarkable turn of logic to take tens of thousands of dollars from an individual and then give them some money back in the form of $1,000, $1,500, $2,000, and have them believe that they're actually coming out ahead on that. I also found it pretty interesting how this president is, lamenting the $2 trillion deficit spending that was in place and the cost of the tax cuts that Republicans did in 2017. And yet he's proposing $6 trillion in spending that's proposed but also passed by now. It is a form of gaslighting. They are running, and I think we talked about this before, right after the election, we talked about this, was my fear is that they recognize they're on a clock, and that clock is the buzzer is coming up in the midterms. And historically speaking, the party that controls the White House loses seats in the first midterm election. That's just generally speaking, that always happens. And I think they realize that. Their vote majority in the House, I think, is 6 votes or something. Right. So it's so close. I think they know they're going to lose seats, especially now with the census, reapportionment, and all of that. And so they're going to run as far left as quickly as possible to get as many things crammed down the American population's throat. Again, they're governing as if they didn't squeak by with these majorities in the chambers. Now, I understand, Joe Biden won the presidency, although there are a lot of Trump supporters that disagree with me on that. But, Joe Biden won the race. And so I recognize that, he has that political capital, but he's governing as if he has a mandate of this super majority, which he does not have. The country is as closely divided as is represented in the legislative body. Mm-hmm. It's as closely divided as it's ever been in my lifetime. And so why are they governing as if they've got more of a mandate than they do? It is because they realize come, 2022, they're not going to be in power. They're not going to have the ability to pass these things. And so they're going to blow up as much as they can to institute and usher in their big government socialist utopia and get the framework in place. So this way, people find it much harder to dismantle, because once you give people free stuff, quote unquote free stuff, it's a lot harder to take it away from them.
Well, in a time when critical thinking is counterculture, integration is racism, up is down, left is right, I guess what you described there is what we call unity. Yeah, that's where we're at this point. Pete, here in North Carolina, we've had, obviously an issue that has garnered some national attention up in Elizabeth City in regards to this shooting of Andrew Brown. Prosecutor, we heard yesterday, or from the district attorney, they say the deputies were, in fear of their lives, obviously, that Andrew Brown was driving at those police officers with his car before they opened fire. His family saw a 20-second video of the body camera footage. They're claiming he had his hands on the steering wheel when police shot him. The truth will ultimately come out, but at the forefront here is this debate surrounding body camera footage and the release of that footage to the public, to the media, to the families. Can you, and I know you covered it during your podcast at the PeteCalendarshow.com. It's a daily podcast covering all sorts of issues from the western part of North Carolina. Can you just give us the down low on the 2016 law that was passed in North Carolina in regards to this specific issue?
Sure. Yeah. So prior to 2016, the state did not have any kind of uniform law on how to treat body cam footage. And after, Ferguson, there was all this push for cops to wear body cameras. And I support that. I think most people support that. Cops support it, right? Because it helps defend them, protect them from, fake complaints and such. So everybody wants the body cam. So the question is, what do you do with the footage that is collected? Because there's a lot of footage that gets collected. Think about like a large police department like Charlotte-Mecklenburg. It's going to have, hundreds of hours of footage collected every single day. What do you do with it? How do you access it? So different departments were handling it differently. And some would say, hey, this is a personnel record. This is video that's shot, by the employee, the officer. And so, no, we're not going to give you any access to it at all. Now, some other departments, you could FOIA request it, you could get it, and there wasn't any problem with it. So they tried to create a uniform treatment of the body cam footage. And they tried to balance, the General Assembly tried to balance access with privacy, because you can imagine most people who deal with law enforcement that gets captured on the video, probably not the best day of their life, right? And who's to say, and what's to stop somebody from, you're in a dispute with your neighbor and you see that, he's out in the backyard and he's drinking, and you can call the cops on him, and the cops show up, get the video, or they shoot video of the interaction. And even if it's, benign, even if it's not really uneventful, you could take that video and use it somehow, right? This is the problem when you're trying to balance who gets access, how do they get access? So what the State General Assembly did was they said, okay, we're going to go ahead and make it by default private. So it's not a public record per se, but it's privately held. The law enforcement has the controlling agent. They have it. And if you want it and you're a family member or a lawyer representing a family member of somebody in the tape, or you are in the tape too, you can ask the law enforcement agency to see it. Not to get a copy of it, but you can see it. And they've got 3 days to do that, and that is free for you. Now, if there's another party that wants access, they have to go to a judge and ask for the access. And that's what we had happen here, because the family got to see some video, but the media wanted to see this video, which I feel the need to point this out. The media is not an uninterested party here. They have self-interest, right? Media outlets want the videos because it makes their stories look better on TV. These are essentially snuff films that they're getting and they're putting on their websites, right? So there is a self-interest because it gets them clicks. And then they're going to say, well, no, we're just in it for the, public accountability.
Integrity.
And we want transparency and all that. But there is this other element to it, okay? They do derive benefit from getting the videos and posting them on their websites. And you can imagine, just like with all the mugshot websites that are out there, you can imagine how complete, open access to every single video might be problematic, right? And so that's where we are. So the judge said, you know what, I looked at the video. The DA says we don't want to jeopardize the case, which, by the way, could in fact happen. And so I don't know what's on the tape, but a lot of people apparently believe they know what's on the tapes because they seem to believe that they should be released having not seen them. The judge has seen them. The judge says, no, we're going to give SBI time to investigate, 30 days, then we'll release them.
And that's kind of where we hit the snag right now, right? Among, the way in which we view things as the general public, there needs to be a balance between the public's right to information and the potential for a defendant to have a right to a fair trial. And when the media...
That's crazy talk, Joe.
Yeah.
It's crazy talk, Joe.
Well, and I get it. So, and at a time, as we said, where, critical thinking is counterculture, up is down, left is right. I mean, when people are actually, pushing a defund and abolish the police, I mean, why not just abolish the courts, the whole legal system, and we'll go out to the town square and we'll settle it there if we decide the mob wants to, ruin somebody's life, right? I mean, it's not too far. It's not too far down the line if this is the way we continue to go.
Right. It's mob justice, the Salem witchification of America. And what it seems like in my discussions and debates with various people on social media about this case, that what it seems like they want access to the video so they can act as jury. But like you said, we have a system, right? There is a judicial system in place that is supposed to be the impartial arbiter of the facts. What is true and what is not. It is not supposed to be done on Twitter. And look, I live on Twitter, so I get it. You want all the information. I appreciate that. But like, I have a rule. Like, I usually don't talk about any of these types of shootings, any of these cases, until at least 48 hours have passed, so I know more information. But so many people, they want this instant analysis, instant verdict. They want, quote, justice right now, and justice is whatever the mob says. And no, that's not the system that we have. Now, you may not trust that system, and that may be why you don't want the system to play out. But let's be honest in what you're demanding. Now, I also point out here that the law enforcement, I think they kind of dropped the ball on this by not moving more quickly with the video release in the first place. I think they kind of sped up by the end of last week, but I think they would have been better served had they immediately started the wheels in motion to get the video to the family and then to go to the court themselves and say, release the video. But they did not. Now, and again, I don't know what's on the video, and maybe that's why they haven't done it. Can we hold out the possibility that there might be something actually on the tape that is not it's not part of some cover up, it's not trying to protect all of the bad cops, that there might actually be something on the video? Like, I'm just going to throw this out there, maybe a confidential informant, like a CI who was actually cited as the guy that they used to help build the case against this. I mean, let's be honest, the guy Andrew Brown, he was a career criminal, right? He was slinging like hardcore narcotics for decades. So they had a CI. Was that person on site? Did they just do some sort of a deal and they're trying to protect undercover agents? They're trying to protect the confidential informant? I don't know, but I'm willing to give the benefit of the doubt at this stage to the court to make that decision, because they won't release the video. So we'll see what happens in 30 days.
Pete, you're asking way too many questions here, because we want it and we want it now. I mean, hell, we need accountability right now. Speaking of the term accountability, that gets tossed around, by the way, a lot. And I get it. When we talk about law enforcement officers sworn to protect, uphold the law, you want them to live by a standard that's maybe higher than the general public. Whatever happened to accountability within the general public? Do we ever, turn the tide around and say, hey, does this guy deserve to die? I'm not going to go down that rabbit hole. But, accountability, as you said.
But that's the beauty. Yeah, you don't have to. We don't have to. I don't have to have an opinion about whether or not that was a good shoot or a bad shoot for the cops, right? We don't have to say that right now. That's the beauty of having a judicial system.
Right.
We can let that system help us decide. We don't have to race out and say, I know what happened and it is X or Y. That's the reason why you go through the process. And by the way, the same people who are accusing the judge, the DA, the police department of all being racist because they're not releasing the video will be the same people saying that racism is the reason why a mistrial gets declared because the video gets leaked out early, right? Like, you're trying to protect the process so a trial doesn't have to be redone like we may see up in Minneapolis with the Derek Chauvin conviction.
And in all honesty, understanding how much the George Floyd situation played out across the country, for myself, in watching bits and pieces of that trial, I came to a conclusion based on the body camera footage that I watched in its entirety over 2, 3, 4 days in that trial that led me to a point where, if I was on that jury, I would have probably convicted him of some of those charges as well, because I had full access to the information and I wasn't really listening to the rhetoric about the 9 minutes, 29 seconds and all the other stuff that went on for the past year. Held off, waited, watched, and ultimately came to a very similar conclusion that the jury did up there in Minneapolis. It's amazing how this all works, Pete.
As did I. Right, as did I. And like when you're weighing these things, and I did not watch the entire duration of the trial. You've seen more of it than I did. So I looked at and watched all of the closing arguments. Like, what is the case? Show me what your evidence is. Bring it all together. And I'm not on the jury, so I don't need to examine all the evidence. But they did. And I heard the summations, and I wasn't really impressed with the defense's arguments. And the prosecution, I thought, had a stronger case. and so did the jury.
Pete Callender with us, the Pete Callender Show. You can find him online. He hosts a daily podcast out of the western part of the state here in North Carolina. We connect the mountains to the coast a couple times each month with Pete. Does a great job, and enjoy his podcasts that he puts out on a daily basis and covering this timely topic surrounding this body camera footage and law that is different than other states. Other states have moved forward with legislation that immediately calls for the release of body camera footage within 48, 72 hours, whatever that may be. That's where our governor wants us to go, as he voiced his support for changing the law surrounding the availability of law enforcement video. I got to ask you, Pete, 16 years as Attorney General for the Department of Justice here in North Carolina, was a Democrat lawmaker with heavy majorities in our state General Assembly. Why now is he the champion for these sorts of things?
Political expediency, just spitballing. But yeah, you're exactly right. The question is obvious to all but the blind, I guess, that the guy was 16 years old, 16 years as the Attorney General, and now he's talking about institutional and systemic racism in the Department of Justice. So, like, were you part of the racism then, Governor? I'm unclear as to what exactly you're saying. Or maybe Josh Stein is in charge now, and he's in charge of all the institutionalized racism. And look, I understand, like, there are discrete, specific arguments to be made, like, for example, the difference in sentencing for crack cocaine versus powder cocaine. Like, those are real debates to be had, right? And I totally agree with, like, sentencing reform, and you got death penalty issues. I totally understand that, and that's fine. But when you start arguing that the institution is systemically racist, and you were the one in charge of that institution for 16 years, and used it as the channel to get into the governor's mansion, I do doubt some of your sincerity about this. I also would note that the original legislation on the body cam footage, it passed the state Senate 48-2. It had Democrat support originally, and now Democrats want to change it. And they're pushing for, and they want to basically invert the onus, to put it on the law enforcement to go to court to keep it secret versus leaving it as it is, where the onus is on the public to go and try to get it from a court. So in other words, it would just kind of flip that process, and it would have to, by default, make all of the videos available upon request within 48 hours. So that's their bill. I don't know if Republicans are interested in tweaking what they've got, but I would point out that if the Democratic bill were law, the exact same outcome would have occurred. There'd be no difference in the outcome, right? Because the law enforcement, the DA in this case, would have said, no, we're not going to release this video. It would have gone to court, and it would have convinced the judge, don't let the video be released, and the judge would have said 30 days, okay. So the same process would have unfolded. It flips the burden on who comes to the court to ask for the relief. That's what the Democrat plan would do.
Well, the media, of course, they want to know. The public wants to know. And ultimately, the question is, do they need to know right away? And I think we answered that question here this morning.
They want to know.
Yeah, they want to know. I have a lot of wants, too, in my life, Pete, but I often stick to the needs. The needs typically overshadow the wants in my life. It's amazing how that kind of works. But I guess if we just take what our president is giving us, maybe I'll be able to get everything I want. I won't care about the needs that I have. Right?
Yeah. Well, I mean, just always remember, a government that is big enough to give you everything that you want is strong enough to take it all away as well. That's it's a lesson that I fear we are destined to relearn once again.
The Pete Callender Show, a daily podcast out of the mountains of North Carolina. You can find out more about what he does and why he does it at thepetecalendershow.com. Pete, it's always a pleasure, my friend.
Thank you. Pleasure's mine, Joe. Thanks so much.
27 minutes past the hour. Great to have Pete a part of the program, friend of the show, connecting the mountains to the coast twice, 3 times, who knows, 4 or 5 times a month. We enjoy Pete and his conversation, and great podcast, by the way, on his website at thepetecalendershow.com. a customer referral rating of 96%, Two Men in a Truck Wilmington has proven time and time again they are the top local choice when it comes to all of your moving needs. Offering a wide range of professional moving services, including local and long-distance moving, business relocations, both full or partial packing services and storage, Two Men in a Truck is dedicated to exceed customer expectations and reliability, quality of service, and care. To start your quote, log on to twomenandatruck.com or call 910-210-0224.
I'm Rob Renz, Marine Corps veteran, entrepreneur, and local business owner. Join me and my buddies on Monday from 6 to 7 for Signal Fire Radio, where we discuss how to successfully transition from the military and become a Signal Fire in your community. That's Signal Fire Radio, Mondays from 6 to 7 p.m. on 106.7 The Big Talk.
Parents, how old were you when you paid off your student loan? Are you still paying for it? Student debt can be crippling, and today it's even more important to keep debt in check. Help your student build a brighter financial future by encouraging them to attend Cape Fear Community College for the first 2 years. CFCC costs thousands less than four-year schools, and classes in our university transfer program are accepted at four-year schools across the state and beyond. Help your kids get a head start academically and financially at CFCC. Learn more at cfcc.edu.
As Wilmington's leader in restorative and regenerative medicine, the Frank Institute specializes in health optimization. Simply put, we use in-depth evaluations and lab testing to determine the best treatments for each patient. So whether you're suffering from an unseen hormonal imbalance or a simple vitamin deficiency, the Frank Institute is ready to get you back to better living. Call us at 910-679-8534 or fill out our symptom survey online at frankinstitute.com. Because at the Frank Institute, you live, we help.
Here's 1 minute of tree knowledge in 30 seconds with K.O. Davis.
It's important that you have somebody, a trained professional, to trim your trees. There are these guys out there that just hack trees, and that's the worst thing in the world that you can do. Don't let somebody hat rack your trees. That's a tree term for hat rack. You know how they just cut a tree and it looks like it's just got like a hat rack? These guys just go up and just cut the trees off, and they don't cut it back to the proper spot. Call us, because we care about your trees.
Visit KO's coasttocoasttree.com.
Don't let some yahoo hat rack your trees.
Hey, this is Matt Ham, co-founder of Uprint Faith and Personal Development. Join us for Wake Up Our Faith, a real conversation about living out your faith between Sundays, streaming live every Wednesday at 11 a.m. on Facebook, YouTube, and Twitter. Catch the replay every Saturday and Sunday at 8 a.m. on Wilmington's Big Talker 106.7 FM. Stop by and visit us on the web at uprint.life.
On the first part of the journey, I was looking at all the life.
As we hit the bottom of the hour, moving into halftime of our 3-hour journey each and every morning here on the Big Talker FM. Andrew Donaldson of Ordinary Times Magazine will join us after the timeout. He has a story on accountability within law enforcement. In fact, some research has been put out over the last number of days surrounding body camera footage and how it's increased across the board as far as the number of law enforcement agencies that are utilizing body camera footage on their officers, along with how it has dropped in some cases the percentages of fatal instances when they interact in a certain situation. Andrew will talk a little bit about accountability. He also has a very straight down the middle objective view as to what we're looking at with our current commander-in-chief and why some folks are slobbering all over the President of the United States, because anything but orange man bad, right? No matter how much it costs you or the limited opportunities that may be on the forefront for you, meaning, well, just stay home and the government will take care of you. Amazing. We call them gullible. Just use a couple of buzzwords, some compassion, and hell, you can win over half the American people. Portions of our program brought to you by, of course, the science, the data, and the experts, along with our friend Dennis at Bugno Pest Control. He and his son DJ, family owned and operated business here locally for 20 years. Bugno is rated the #1 pest control company in Wilmington by Home Advisor for 3 years in a row. 20 years of experience, locally owned and operated, family-run business. Dennis's son DJ put Bugno's 20 years of experience to work for you. They come around my property once a month. And as the warmer weather arrives, so do those pesky mosquitoes. I want to be able to grill up some USDA prime beef for my buddy John Mullins at America's Choice Gourmet without getting bit up and maybe have a meal outside in the backyard with the family. Mosquitoes, of course, a major concern during the warm summer months, and their mosquito control formula will help keep yourself safe and comfortable as you enjoy your cookouts this spring and summer. Call Bugno Pest Control at 910-367-2501. Tell them Joe from the Big Talker sent you, and you'll get 20% off your initial contract. That's 910-367-2501. Find them online at bugnopestcontrol.com. That's Bugno, B-U-G-N-O, pestcontrol.com.
Hello, I'm Jeff Rivenbark with WWOA News. Authorities say a North Carolina sheriff's deputy has died and another has been wounded after a shooting at a home led to a standoff that continued late into the night. The Watauga County Sheriff's Office said deputies were dispatched to a home in the Boone area yesterday after the homeowner and his family didn't appear at work or answer telephone calls. A sheriff's statement says deputies entered the home and were fired on. According to authorities, a deputy died at a hospital where he was taken after being shot. Authorities said the second deputy was still at the scene and law officers had the home surrounded after nightfall with what it called an active scene. In the case of a man shot and killed by deputies in Elizabeth City, the body camera video of the killing of Andrew Brown Jr. will not be released publicly for at least 30 days. While Judge Jeffrey Foster said the video was of compelling public interest, he worried public release of the video could harm the ongoing investigation into the case and pose a threat to administration of justice. The decision came yesterday, shortly after North Carolina prosecutors said that Andrew Brown Jr. had hit law enforcement officers with his car before they opened fire. Apollo 11 astronaut Michael Collins has died at the age of 90. He orbited the moon alone while Neil Armstrong and Buzz Aldrin made their historic first steps on the moon in 1969. Collins' family said in a statement that he died yesterday from cancer. While Collins traveled some 238,000 miles to the moon and came within 69 miles, he never set foot on the surface. And we now know the release date for a new movie that has been filming in the Cape Fear. The horror movie The Black Phone by Scott Derrickson is set to release in theaters on January 28, 2022. One of the writers confirmed this on Twitter yesterday. The movie is an adaptation of Joe Hill's short story. The flick stars Ethan Hawke. For more on these stories, head over to WWAYTV3.com. I'm Jeff Rivenbark. Have a great day.
Happy Thursday, everybody. I'm WWAY meteorologist Ramel Carpenter with your Storm Track 3 forecast. We're going to see more dry and quiet conditions out there across the Cape Fear, and a nice warm-up on the way as well. We'll top off in the middle and upper 80s, close to 90 degrees well inland of the coast, and along the coastline, we're going to top off in the upper 70s, close to 80s. Not a bad beach day by any means. And the sunshine continues as we head into the upcoming weekend as well. Temperatures tonight are going to drop back down into the middle 60s, pretty mild, with partly cloudy skies. Get your full forecast on WWAY and WWAYTV3.com.
This news and weather is brought to you by Two Men and a Truck. For your free quote, go to twomenandatruck.com. twomenandatruck.com.
Andrew Donaldson at Ordinary Times Magazine joins us right now. Ordinary-times.com is their website if you'd like to learn more about their work. Again, you can get all the national circulated outlets through various ways. And I rarely click or tune in to those sources for news, information, and commentary. It's folks like Andrew Donaldson and his colleagues at Ordinary Times, the folks over at FEE, the Foundation for Economic Education, my buddy Yael Osowski with the Consumer Choice Center. We've got our own network of sources that we rely on to bring you the news, information, and opinion of the day. And they bring it to you in a way that will enlighten you and, frankly, encourage you to go do your own research and homework rather than just listen to Fox News or the Communist News Network. It's not that hard. In fact, the time you spend on the national news outlets, if you spent half the time focused on some of the platforms and sources that we utilize, you'd get double the information in less than half the time of consumption, which then frees you up to live a little here in this one life that you've got to live. Because you're either get busy living or you get busy dying. And we choose to live life to its fullest. That's why about 1 o'clock every day I completely disengage from the news cycle. Yeah, I come back. Part of the gig. But it's very simple when you've got great connections like we do here with so many great news platforms. Andrew, it's a pleasure, my friend, as always. I hope all is well out in Vietnam.
It is well, and the thing you're getting to is very important because, you know, your social media circles and your media circles, those are a lot like your group friends in your real life, too. If you surround yourself with good people, it becomes a self-sustaining thing. So all those people you just mentioned, you know, they're all mutuals and friends, and I've done things with most of those guys that you just mentioned of various things. You know, we all reinforce each other. It's like competition on a team almost. Like everybody's trying to be their best. Everybody's trying to get out the best information they can, and it keeps you in check and it keeps accountability among you. So it's like everything else, Joe. It's putting a team around you, even in your media consumption, to have good information so you can make good decisions when these things get really, really loud in the news cycle.
Andrew, with that said, you have a piece at Ordinary Times Magazine, their website, ordinary-times.com. St. Joe of the Low Bar, President Biden, approval numbers, and ticking clocks. How'd you come up with that headline? St. Joe of the Low Bar. Hey, kid, don't be messing around with my St. Joseph, all right? It's March 19th is St. Joseph's Day. Anyway, with that said, you basically lay it all out there as far as, you know, how and why Joe Biden became president of the United States. Orange man bad, of course. And, you know, when you've got a mild-mannered, you know, grandpa-like figure in front of the camera speaking to the masses using compassionate words and, you know, doing so in a gentle and, I guess if you want to consider it a presidential way, then it's, you know, good for you if that's the way you're looking at things. And that's, well, just about where half of the country stands at this point, right?
Right. And first of all, I'm a Baptist, so every day is just casserole day. We don't have all the saint days, so you're going to have to help me out with that half of it. But, and we look, the other half of the family is Catholic, but we'll talk about that some other time. But the thing with Joe Biden, the big dynamic was so much of the stuff with him, and we're having a little fun with the title there. You know, you got to have some fun in life. It is a low bar for him on things like these speeches because he's just not Trump. If you watch the, I think it was a Washington Post headline yesterday. They had already put out how great the speech is before he'd even given it. All the Tim Scott rebuttal stuff, they already had all the fact check stuff up before he'd even given the speech. You know, it's just there's a lot of stuff going on right now where it's just the come down for the corporate media and the network media of going, well, he ain't Trump, so everything's good and loosey-goosey and everybody's happy. And for a lot of voters, you know, to be fair, President Trump could wear people out. He was a lot for a lot of folks. A lot of people didn't like his style. You've talked about this before. So there's a cohort of people in the country that are just like, well, as long as he ain't Trump. Here's your problem with that, and the reason we wrote the piece like that, that's going to have a shelf life. And it's going to have a short shelf life, and Pete kind of touched on this a little bit. You realize this week the president's going to have a great week. He had good approval numbers. He has his 100 days today. He's going to go down to Atlanta and give a speech. This is a good week for Joe Biden politically. He gets his big moment last night. this might be the high water mark for a while for Joe Biden, because you got to understand, remember, last two presidents, President Obama, President Trump, both came in with majorities that were bigger than what Joe Biden has. They got one major piece of legislation each. Obama got through the ACA, Obamacare. President Trump got through the tax cut, and then that was it. And they had bigger, stronger majorities than what President Biden has right now, where it's 50-50 with the tiebreaker with Vice President Harris. So this very well, look, don't listen to the noise. Watch what they do. Nancy Pelosi and Chuck Schumer and President Biden all said the most important legislation they do this year is going to be H.R. 1. You can go look it up. Don't take my word for it. Go look. They all said that. It was the first bill the House passed when they came back. What happened the last couple of days? You didn't hear a lot about it. Schumer has pushed it back now, Leader Schumer. They're not even – the deadline for the vote on that is now all the way back to August. Well, why is that? They don't have the votes. First rule of being in the majority is if you got the votes, votes. They don't have the votes for it. Infrastructure is starting to slag off a little bit. What's going on with that? Well, everybody wants this, that, and the other in it. They're having trouble getting the votes for it. This may be the high water mark of the Biden presidency. And the thing is once this stuff starts happening and the gridlock sets in, Trump is going to have a really short shelf life, and people are going to want to know what's going on in the country.
Well, and of course, giving the speech last night a chance to lay out all sorts of different things, and it kind of frames the conversation. I mean, Andrew, how could anyone be opposed, as I've made mention here this morning, opposed to investing in American families? It's the infrastructure of our country. How can we be opposed to something like that? I mean, isn't that where this narrative is going as Republicans push back against this $2 trillion proposal that's being laid out as infrastructure, the American Jobs Plan now?
Yeah, and everything is infrastructure. We've all made a joke about it, how everything seems to be infrastructure all of a sudden. Here's the thing with this when you're dealing with something like this, don't call it the State of the Union and joint session and kind of everything in that speech. And I'm not knocking President Biden. He delivered it fine. He did he's good in these spots aesthetically, like you keep saying. Aesthetically, he's calm, he's convincing, he knows how to read a tell. He's been in, he lived in the Senate for 40 years. That's his home base. He even joked about it at the opening of his speech. He's super comfortable in that environment, and he presents it well. Everything in that speech I've heard before, other than some of the COVID stuff, you could cut and paste huge chunks of that from President Obama's joint session speeches, and it's exactly the same, and then just put Joe Biden sitting behind him as the vice president instead of the president. It's most of the same wish list stuff. And again, it's not that we're against all these things. There's things in there. Let's take a local example real quick. He wants to have free community college. Well, that's something we can talk about. But why does the federal government have to do a top-down program for free community college? I'm a community college kid. You're a community college kid. Community college was a huge, important step in both of our lives. We've talked about that. But why not let Brunswick County, who has set up a program on their own, say, this is what works for us. We're a growing county. We want to invest in this way, this way, that. Why has it got to be a top-down program? Well, because then it's this one-size-fits-all top-down thing. And one other thing about last night, he talked about China. He says with China, we're going to compete with China, but then in the same thing, all these plans are coming off of central planning. Joe, we are not going to out-central plan China. Do we understand how insane that is? We can do it like we did the Soviet Union. We can out-innovate them. We can out-freedom them. We can out-culturally show them that there's a better way than locking up 1 million Uyghurs in concentration camps and having social currency things that you have to be good with the party if you want to go buy food and these sorts of things. That's how you do that. We're not going to out-central plan China and then with the other side of your mouth go, well, we're going to compete with China. Well, then we need to do less central planning, more innovation, more freedom, and let people do it. We're not against these things. We're against a lot of these things being top-down things from the federal government when local, state, and municipalities can probably come up with a better plan on their own.
Well, I think we should just listen to the buzzwords, take him for his word, and just give Uncle Sam an opportunity. I mean, Andrew, he's only been there for 50 years. I mean, how dare we question some of the ideas that he's putting forward. And guess what? The wealthy are going to pay for it. How about that? I've never heard that idea before.
I'd believe it if they weren't pushing very quietly to repeal the SALT tax, and we won't get into the details of that because people's eyes will just glow over. But please go look it up. Repealing the SALT tax. It's being pushed by the Democrats, especially Chuck Schumer of all people. That's going to be a massive tax break. So again, they're kind of talking out of both sides of their mouth a little bit. And another doozy from last night, one that caught my attention. Did you hear him talking about the IRS? Well, we're gonna better audit these rich folks that cheat on. You know why the IRS, you can go, again, don't take my word for this. Go look it up. It'll take you 3 seconds of Googling the Google list. The IRS does not audit rich people. You know why? They don't have the budget and the resources to go after it, which was President Biden's point. Well, we don't have the budget and resources. Well, guess what? Government is like flowing water. They go to the path of least resistance. They're going to take those resources and they're going to go after people they know they can prosecute and can't fight back. The upper middle class, the lower, what we would call the lower wealthy, but those are a lot of your job producers. Those are the people that's going to start getting crunched and that sort of thing. So it's little things like that where you can hear what they're saying, but listen to what they're actually saying, because it's going to get applied very, very differently than the way it's getting pitched.
So you're telling me the elite are going to protect the elite? No, that could not be.
Oh, no, I'm shocked. Hold on, let's take a minute and let's just take a minute. Of
Let's actually keep a moment of dead air here, a moment of silence to let that all sink in. Wait a minute, the government the government is going to protect their own. Huh? Who would have thought?
Yeah, and it's like a lot of these guys right now, Joe. I'm all for the government helping, but when the government's helping you at the point of authority where it's like, we're going to help you whether you want it or not, that's not helping anymore. Now you're getting into other words we're not going to use because people get really nervous. You know, words that start with T, like, you know, tyranny, and don't say that out loud. But it's the predominant. Look, Joe Biden's been around for 47 years in public service. He's entering his 5th decade in service in Washington. We have all the completed book on Joe Biden and what he believes. He believes he's a down-the-line, mainstream liberal, bigger government solves all problems. This is just who he is. So if you agree with that, he's your guy. If you don't agree with that, they're couching it in new language, but it's a lot of the same old things we've heard for years and years and years and years and years. There's nothing really new here. It's just they're going to change it up, put new buzzwords on it, and present it out. And at some point, people are going to need to kind of stop and go, well, wait a minute, this was $2 trillion, this was another $2 trillion, this is another $2 trillion. I'm bad at math, but that's a lot of trillions starting to stack up. Taxes are going to go up. We're going to have to see what the reaction to the economy is to some of these programs. And three more years before he's up for re-election is a long time. If he doesn't get a lot, and if the midterms go badly for him, there could be trouble on the horizon for President Biden.
Andrew Donaldson with us, Ordinary Times Magazine, ordinary-times.com, their website, if you'd like to find out more about what they do and why they do it. Andrew, you've got another piece that discusses this buzzword we're hearing in terms of law enforcement these days, the word accountability. And you say, you know, it's easy behind a computer screen or, you know, amongst your friends in circles, easy enough to sling around that word accountability. Yeah, but when we look at the realization of this, particularly as it relates to law enforcement arriving on a scene for this, that, or the other, that, you know, these people, even with top-notch training, you know, are under tremendous stress in a seconds type of situation where, you know, life or death is on the line. And when you talk about accountability, it's far from a clear-cut thing, as you write.
Yeah, and we've had so many instances right as that happened, because remember, we had the Derek Chauvin trial that you've already talked a little bit about, a thing where people could see the video, and even if they disagreed with how the law would be applied and what the actual charges and the guilty would be, almost everybody looked at that and went, something really bad happened here. And maybe they couldn't figure out, well, is that should you go to prison for that? Is that a 20-year sentence? Is it a 10-year sentence? Did he accidentally do it? Did he free? People could just look at the video and go, something very wrong happened here. And then right at the verdict of that, we have this horrible Ma'Khia Bryant situation in Columbus. And the reason things like the Elizabethtown thing is really hard for people to get their heads around, and Pete did a great job breaking this down. We got that Ma'Khia Bryant footage very, very fast. How quick did that narrative turn? And it really took the venom out of that situation, because it went from where folks were just slamming the narrative of police brutality to, oh, this was an impossibly bad situation. It's a tragic situation. We now know that it's a long-running CPS involved, really ugly stuff involved, and the police just showed up, and it's a tragedy what happened. And they got that screenshot where you had a weapon, you had a police officer reacting, and it really took a lot of the venom out of that. But it was also instructive, Joe Catenacci, because even with that, there was certain people that were not in good faith argument, and you could tell who the good faith arguers were, because we're like, well, we all saw the video. Same thing with the Chauvin case. there's people that we could tell were not in good faith because they looked at that and went, "Oh, there's nothing wrong here." And you're like, "Well, wait a minute. Of course there was something wrong here. We can discuss it." This accountability thing is a two-edged sword. It's going to hold up what really happened, but we got to all remember that if we're going to be honest about accountability, you have to take all that bad that you're going to see and apply it. And a lot of it's going to start with you and how you perceive things and your priors on it, and go, how am I processing the situation? Do I have a bias for the police? Do I have a bias against the police? And I think the longer we do this, it will start in the survey that I referenced in the piece on the polling for the body cameras. The longer we do this and the police get more used to it and people get more used to it, and the laws like the law of North Carolina laws, people don't understand that there's different laws that might need to be changed legislatively. It's a process, but it's a process that requires work. We can't just sling a word off on social media, scream at everybody, and expect change to happen. We need to take this new technology that is giving us good evidence, visual evidence. We can all watch the same thing now. And now you're going to have to put the work in to go, how do we apply this to try to make our communities a little bit better, both for the police and for the civilian population?
Well, I think, in the society that we live in, we want it and we want it now. That
Right.
is where we're kind of in a rut here, in that people want it and want it now. We need to, rush to public opinion rather than let it play out the way kind of, we have taken to this approach when we see something going on around the country.
Yeah, and we need to be, we should be, especially when it's a life or death matter, Joe. And even if it's a hardened criminal fighting with the police, you still don't want to see a loss of life. It's bad. It's not good for anybody. The police officers don't want that either. They're the last people that want that. But what we got to understand is, with these things of accountability, we all got to start with the basis of we're all humans. That means we're all fallible, which means we all make mistakes, and we all of us have to work at this thing. It's not an automatic thing. It's not something that your political party or your ideology or your labels are going to fix. You have to be responsible for you first, and then if you're consistent in your responsibility for yourself, people will listen to you when it comes to calling other people to account. And then that's what everybody needs to do. It starts with us, goes out to our communities, and then it'll go out to the nation if we just all do the right things and try our best. And it's hard on these police shootings. We got to take them individually. It's really, really hard. And go, no matter what it is, let's get to the truth, even if it hurts ourselves, even if it hurts my feelings, let's get to the truth, deal with the truth, and then go forward together as a people.
Andrew Donaldson with us at Ordinary Times Magazine. That's ordinary-times.com. Does great work along with many of his colleagues, and we oftentimes attribute much of our discussions to some of the topics that they're discussing, the information they provide, and the commentary they give, just as you heard here this morning with our buddy Andy. Andrew, it's a pleasure, my friend, and let's do it again soon.
Anytime, always thrilled to join you, and I appreciate your work so much, my friend. Take care.
That's ordinary-times.com, their website for Ordinary Times Magazine. We're moving up into the top of the hour. We will bring the conversation to the local level after 9 o'clock. Mike Kozlowski is with us from the Wilmington Metro Planning Organization. Oh, yeah, we get to talk orange cones, traffic, and transportation in southeastern North Carolina, one of the fastest growing areas here in the Old North State. We'll talk with Mike after the top of the hour news break.
Want to see inside more than 40 of the area's finest new homes for free? Visit the 35th Annual Parade of Homes presented by the Wilmington Cape Fear Home Builders Association. Homes are open from noon to 5 p.m. this weekend, May 1st and 2nd. Be sure to stop by the 2021 Showcase Community River Lights. Visit WilmingtonParadeOfHomes.com for details and tour homes virtually. This event is possible thanks to Builders First Source, First Bank, Piedmont Natural Gas, Star News Media, and Trust Builder Group.
Hey everyone, Ben Hawkins here with Cross Country Mortgage. Rates are still at historic lows, and there has never been a better time to purchase your dream home or refinance your existing. With over 300 loan products including conventional, FHA, VA, USDA, renovation, and jumbo, we are certain we have the right loan product for you and your family. Call me today to be pre-qualified to make the offer on your next dream home. 910-352-3373 or visit my website at lendwithben.com.
Want to see inside more than 40 of the area's finest new homes for free? Visit the 35th Annual Parade of Homes presented by the Wilmington Cape Fear Home Builders Association. Homes are open from noon to 5 p.m. this weekend, May 1st and 2nd. Be sure to stop by the 2021 Showcase Community River Lights. Visit WilmingtonParadeOfHomes.com for details and tour homes virtually. This event is possible thanks to Builders First Source, First Bank, Piedmont Natural Gas, Star News Media, and Trust Builder Group.
Government has become too big, too overtaxing, and is constantly overregulating every aspect of your life.
If you agree with that, tune into Consumer Choice Radio every Saturday at 10 a.m. here on the Big Talker 106.7 FM with me, Yael Osowski.
And me, David Clement. For an hour, you'll get expert analysis on what the government is sinking its teeth into next and how you, as a consumer, can push back.
ConsumerChoiceRadio.com.
Folks, we all know ongoing road construction and traffic can weigh heavy on your vehicle. Since 2006, O'Leary's Automotive Repair has provided comprehensive repair services at affordable prices to get you back on the road in no time. Their ASE certified technicians will help you find a cost-effective repair and maintenance alternatives. O'Leary's has multiple locations in the area in Hampstead, Leland, the Myrtle Grove area, Ogden, and Wrightsboro. O'Leary's Automotive Repair, a trusted, locally owned business since 2006. Our phone number is 910-299-7535 if you'd like to chime in before we go to break here in just a few minutes. Again, Mike Kozlowski from the Wilmington Metro Planning Organization is going to join us. We'll be discussing all things related to traffic, transportation, road construction in our area. We'll get a little update on some of the current construction, where we are as far as funding, where we stand at the state level when it comes to investing in infrastructure. Well, what role does the $1 billion plus from the sale of New Hanover Regional Medical Center, will that play into our roads or not? We've got a bunch of federal money coming down this way as well. The county manager has laid out kind of his proposal. County commissioners have signed off on it. Well, what does that mean for roads and infrastructure? Not meaning the family unit under the Harris-Biden definition, but true infrastructure when it comes to miles driven, the number of cars on the roadway, and how we can best improve the flow of traffic in our area with good roads and bridges. Mike Kozlowski joins us next.
Being stuck in airports, terrorized, sent to meetings, hypnotized, overexposed.
Keeping Southport informed. The Big Talker 106.7 FM WFBT, Carolina Beach.
Heading to Georgia.
The White House is calling it the Getting America Back on Track Tour. Starting today and continuing into next week, the president, vice president, their spouses, and cabinet secretaries will be fanning out across the country to highlight successes of the young administration. They'll also be making the case for action on the White House infrastructure and jobs plan.
Mr. Biden's spending proposals would total roughly $6 trillion. View from the other side of the aisle, offered by the only black Republican in the U.S. Senate.
South Carolina Senator Tim Scott used his Republican response to President Biden's address to Congress to vow that America is not a racist country.
Race is not a political weapon to settle every issue the way one side wants. It's far too important.
Senator Scott seized on Mr. Biden's call that passage of major police reform could help stamp out institutional racism nationwide. He's the lead GOP negotiator as the two parties seek an accord on legislation overhauling police procedures. Bernie Bennett, Washington.
And the president's speech ran about 1 hour. At the end, Mr. Biden delivering this line for which he is winning praise.
Thank you for your patience.
Thank you for your patience. Several media commentators applauding Mr. Biden for his honesty. We're ending the speech with that. Former Trump press secretary Kayleigh McEnany calls it a fitting end to Biden's first address. Things looking up for the U.S. economy as evidenced by a couple of just-released economic reports. The number of Americans applying for jobless benefits fell by 13,000 last week to 553,000, the lowest level since the pandemic hit in March. And the U.S. economy grew at a brisk 6.4% annual rate last quarter. Wall Street ahead of the open. Dow futures up 161 points. More on these stories at townhall.com.
Excuse me, why don't you have life insurance yet?
I've got diabetes, and I know the price will be through the roof with a pre-existing condition.
Well, actually, SelectQuote makes it easy to get very affordable life insurance, even if you have a health issue.
I'm listening.
You'll get quotes from some of the country's most trusted carriers. Even with your diabetes, you can get around $250,000 in insurance for as little as $1 a day.
That would be amazing. What's it called again?
SelectQuote. Just call or go to selectquote.com to get your free quote. Get the coverage you need at a price you can afford. Call 1-800-694-1010 or go to selectquote.com today. That's 1-800-694-1010 or selectquote.com. SelectQuote. We shop. You save. Get full details on example policy at selectquote.com/commercials. Monthly premiums vary based on health company and other factors. Not available in all states.
A Moscow judge has upheld the defamation conviction of jailed Kremlin critic Alexei Navalny, who joined the court hearing via video link, his first public appearance since he went on a hunger strike.
Hearing by video link from prison, Alexei Navalny looked gaunt but sounded defiant. In a dig at President Putin, the Kremlin critic declared the emperor has no clothes. His crown is falling down around his ears. Russians, he said, were being turned into slaves. Shortly afterwards, the judge rejected Mr. Navalny's appeal against a conviction for libel. The Russian authorities are increasing the pressure on the jailed opposition activist. A new criminal case has been launched against him, and his allies have announced they're disbanding his network of regional offices, fearing the authorities may soon label Mr. Navalny's political movement extremist.
And that is BBC correspondent Steve Rosenberg reporting from Moscow. News and analysis at townhall.com.
Connecticut has become the sixth state to end the religious exemption from childhood immunization requirements for daycare facilities, schools, and colleges. Governor Ned Lamont signed legislation Wednesday that requires vaccinations against highly contagious diseases like measles, pertussis, tetanus, and meningitis. Any students in kindergarten and older with an existing religious exemption will be grandfathered. Two groups opposing the bill say they plan to file state and federal lawsuits seeking to overturn the new law, which will take effect with the 2022-23 school year. I'm Mike Gracia.
West Virginia Governor Jim Justice signing a bill that prevents boys from competing against girls on sports teams in middle and high schools and in colleges. Alabama, Arkansas, Mississippi, and Tennessee have similar laws on their books. Wall Street ahead of this morning's opening bell. The Dow futures up 160 points. NASDAQ futures ahead 156. More on these stories at townhall.com.
Let me tell you something you already know. The world ain't all sunshine and rainbows. It's a very mean and nasty place, and I don't care how tough you are, it will beat you to your knees and keep you there permanently if you let it. You, me, or nobody is gonna hit as hard as life. But it ain't about how hard you hit. It's about how hard you can get hit and keep moving forward. How much you can take and keep moving forward. That's how winning is done.
When the moon hits your eye like a big pizza pie, that's amore. When the world seems to shine like you've had too much wine, that's amore.
As we move into the third and final hour of our program, I mean, boy, not to be a homer or anything, but over the last couple of days, we've had some great commentary, information, news, opinion. Yesterday, we went from Raleigh to D.C., back here to Wilmington with Treasurer Falwell, Senator Tillis, Mayor Saffo. Enjoyed guests from Texas, the state of California. Today, we've largely stayed in-state, connecting with Pete Callender out in the mountains, Andrew Donaldson from Cumberland County, the Fayetteville area, and now we'll bring it right back here to the local level as Mike Kozlowski with the Wilmington Metro Planning Organization joins us. And it's been a while since Mike has been with us, and we all know that top concern for a majority of Wilmingtonians and those that live around this area, one of the fastest growing areas in our state and across the country, is, of course, infrastructure. We're hearing a lot about that term, infrastructure, these days. Not the infrastructure that's being laid out as far as what we're seeing with the federal government and $2 trillion and this, that, and the other, but actual roads, bridges, the ability to get around town in a comfortable way, and what's in store as far as projects in the future to help, as we deal with a lot of this growth and development across our region. Mike, it's a pleasure, man, and thanks so much for spending some time with us this morning.
Well, thanks for being back.
And with that said, just kind of give us a little update. What's the Metro Planning Organization up to these days, and maybe a recap on some of the construction projects that are underway on the roadways, and when we may see an end to some of these things that are going on.
Well, the Wilmington MPO is working diligently to address the traffic concerns in the community. Just in November of 2020, the MPO board adopted Cape Fear Moving Forward 2045, which is the MPO's long-range transportation plan for the region. It looks out 25 years at our infrastructure needs and is a fiscally constrained plan, which means the projects that are included, we have to be able to pay for based on a financial analysis. And so this plan focuses on all modes of transportation. It's not just a highway plan, but it focuses on roadways, bicycle and pedestrian improvements, public transportation, ferry and waterway, freight rail, and mass transportation. So it looks holistically at our transportation infrastructure and provides a blueprint for that infrastructure over the next 25 years.
With that said, as we look at some of the funding mechanisms that help put this forward, let's just remind folks on how that formula kind of works in the state of North Carolina, and that the cities are responsible for many of their roadways, the unincorporated areas of each of the counties, that's up to the state. And then you've got this weird mix where we want developers to get in the road building business. I mean, there's a lot that goes into the formula to build a roadway in North Carolina, or keep up to date on the roadways.
Well, there's money that comes in from D.C. through the federal government. There's state money that's provided from the North Carolina Department of Transportation, and then there's also local funds that our municipalities provide toward improving transportation infrastructure in the community.
With that said, when we look at some of these projects, last year we heard some news that makes you a little uneasy when you talk about how fast our state is growing and the ability to keep up with its infrastructure, particularly roadways, highways, and that was the DOT. Spent $1 billion over than what it should have spent, meaning in the red. What trickle-down effect did that have, or did it have an impact on us? Obviously, you overspent $1 billion. There has to be some type of repercussions from that.
Well, it certainly did have an impact on the region. It required a number of projects in this region to be delayed. The DOT is slowly coming out of those cash management issues. We are seeing more projects released. In addition, the department has allowed our local communities, the MPO funds, projects locally through our Surface Transportation Block Grant and Transportation Alternative Set-Aside programs. And those projects are mainly focused on bicycle and pedestrian improvements, intersection improvements, traffic signals. The department has allowed those projects now to move forward as well. So we're really seeing the department turning the faucet on, but they're turning it on slowly in order to not have any of the issues that they occurred over the last year.
With that said, I believe the State General Assembly injected a big chunk of cash to keep the DOT basically solvent once all this news kind of broke about the mismanagement of funds. Mike, when we talk about road projects that are underway, let's start, of course, in my neck of the woods, which is up in the Ogden, Porter's Neck area. A lot of growth up there. We've got this military cutoff road project. I walk through Ogden Park, take a jog through it almost on a daily basis. I see a lot of earth is being moved right now, basically from that area up to where it will connect with I-140 eventually. They're hard at work each and every day, and I guess the one good thing about that project is that it's not necessarily impacting daily traffic on a day-to-day basis, in that just that one little section of Market Street is impacted. And it's not necessarily impacted in a big way, particularly during the busy drive time hours.
Yeah, so military cutoff extension is the construction's ongoing. We do anticipate that project to be completed in early 23, and that will provide an important connection from Market Street out to the Wilmington bypass.
And with that said, I'm always intrigued by the design of that project. And now you're fitting a roadway in between, a bunch of subdivisions. And initially, before they broke ground on it, I'm like, I just don't see how this is all going to shake out and shape up. But it's pretty amazing what these guys have been doing out there as far as just the engineering of the whole thing.
Well, and there was a lot of planning that went into place at the forefront of that project. If you look at how the West Bay Estates was developed, the city, on behalf of the county back in the day, actually filed a corridor preservation map in order to protect the corridor for military cutoff extension. And that allowed that project to actually come to fruition, because I believe if that corridor map had not been filed, then the development would have continued to occur. And at some point, it becomes cost prohibitive to build a connection of that magnitude. And so the use of the MAP Act in that instance was critical to seeing that project come to fruition.
And when are we looking at a timeline as far as when that'll be wrapped up, so far as so long as it stays on time and within budget?
Based on the information that we've been provided by the Department of Transportation, it's looking like that project should open in early 2023.
As far as some of the other road projects around town that I may not be privy to, because I don't necessarily drive all around town all the time, kind of stick to my neck of the woods, and that's what a lot of people do these days, which is why many of the developers and within the construction industry, as they tell you, are building things so people don't have to travel 15 miles to the road to the nearest store. That's why you see a lot of these mixed-use developments and these other commercial properties and stores built right around these neighborhoods. Give us a little update on some other road projects around the area that are impacting people's commute each day.
So probably, not probably, the most important project that we anticipate to see starting construction in a short duration is the Hampstead Bypass project. That's the MPO board's top priority, and we anticipate to see that project start in early 2022.
And that came offline and then back online because of the situation with the DOT, or at least I thought I caught a news article that said we were out of the circle and now we're back in.
Well, that project has been start-stop over the years, but it is moving forward. There was a settlement with Jamestown Pender in the northern part of the project that will allow that project to move forward, and that just happened last year. And so that was a critical piece of allowing that project to move forward, was the settlement between the North Carolina Department of Transportation and Jamestown Pender. And so the Hampstead Bypass is a critical piece of infrastructure in eastern North Carolina. And we're excited, very excited, to see the department put a shovel in the ground and start the construction of that project in early 22.
Well, I know the folks in Hampstead are probably relieved as well, because right now there's just one corridor in and out of another massively growing area within our metro region of New Hanover, Brunswick, and Pender counties. As far as some of the areas around New Hanover over into Brunswick County, are there any projects that are ongoing or on the docket as far as things that we should look out for?
So there's a number of priorities in the region that the MPO board has identified, and we're working to try to accelerate some of those projects. Obviously, they experienced delays as a result of the cash management issues that the department had. But our MPO board's priorities are the Hampstead Bypass, Independence Boulevard extension, the interchange at Carr Avenue and the Martin Luther King Jr. Parkway, the interchange at Market Street Eastwood and the Martin Luther King Jr. Parkway, and then also the interchange there at Military Cutoff in Eastwood.
Well, no doubt, areas that are filled with plenty of vehicles during the normal drive times, and then rush hour, pretty tight to get around throughout the city. which is why I use all the back roads and, pretty much know the traffic map like the back of my hand when I do get out and about, around those busy times. Encourage you to do the same, but also if you're going to use the cut-throughs, go the dang speed limit. We don't need anyone. That's why the speed bumps are popping up in every neighborhood, and I live near a stop sign, and the amount of people that blow through my stop sign on a daily basis, one day I'm going to get you. Somebody's going to get you. And I just hope it's not at the detriment of the safety of a small child or somebody's pet or even me if you're not looking while you're cruising through one of these subdivisions at a ridiculous amount of speed. Mike, when we look at the priorities that we have here, obviously the state is a massively growing state like our region. When it comes to the priority that we have compared to maybe the bigger metro areas, the Charlotte, the Raleigh, the Piedmont, are we, at least our lawmakers or you and your organization, who's lobbying for us to make sure we're getting our fair shake?
We are certainly advocating to make sure that we receive the amount of dollars that we deserve down here in the Wilmington region. And we work closely with our local delegation on, efforts to bring dollars down to our area. And Joe, an example of that is just something that we worked with Congressman Rouser on. And it was submitted last week or earlier this week. I'm not sure actually when it got submitted, but there's been discussion at the House Transportation and Infrastructure Committee about community project funding. And so the military cutoff and Eastwood project is an important project for this region. There's a first phase of that, which is the Drysdale Drive extension. And so we worked with NCDOT. Community project funding is funding that may be member directed, and so there was concerns from the department whether it be new money or existing money that would just be redirected. And so what we did is we worked with the department to come up with a project, that Drysdale Drive extension, that if it's existing money, it wouldn't have a negative impact, and if it's new money, it would bring additional monies to this area. And so we worked and very closely with the Congressman's office and are very appreciative of Congressman Rouser for submitting that project for consideration.
Mike Kozlowski with the Wilmington Metro Planning Organization. Mike, how can people kind of keep up to date with some of the things that you're discussing, the priorities that you're putting forth as far as infrastructure goes in our area, and items that they may want to give insight on or input towards, given that again, we live in an area that everyone. One of their top things that is on their mind is, of course, the traffic and the growth that we're seeing.
So we have a board that's comprised of 13 members that sets the policy and direction for the organization. 12 of those are elected, and one is appointed by the governor. He serves on the North Carolina Board of Transportation. And our board meets monthly, typically the last Wednesday of every month. And during that board meeting, we do have a public comment period that allows citizens to provide comments and feedback. You can also find additional information on our website at www.wmpo.org. And so those are ways to, one, provide feedback, and two, provide information or to receive information that we have available. And there's a wealth of information on our website.
So you want to be in the know about some of the projects and priorities of our area as it relates to growth and infrastructure. Again, WMPO.org, Wilmington Metro Planning Organization. Mike Kozlowski is the executive director of WMPO. Mike, thanks a lot for the update here this morning.
Thank you, and I appreciate the opportunity, and I'll come back anytime.
And, of course, we'll continue in these discussions with Mike, always very accessible and open to joining us to discuss, an issue that is obviously on the front of many people's list when it comes to concerns that they have in the area. And now you have a place where you can go get the information and contribute to the conversation. For more info on the Wilmington Metro Planning Organization, again, their website, WMPO.org, WMPO.org. We'll be back. Folks, we all know ongoing road construction and traffic can weigh heavy on your vehicle. Since 2006, O'Leary's Automotive Repair has provided comprehensive repair services at affordable prices to get you back on the road in no time. Their ASE certified technicians will help you find a cost-effective repair and maintenance alternatives. O'Leary's has multiple locations in the area in Hampstead, Leland, the Myrtle Grove area, Ogden, and Wrightsboro. O'Leary's Automotive Repair, a trusted, locally owned business since 2006.
I'm State Farm Agent Rob Renz, and I want to help you get to a better state. We are one of the fastest growing and most reviewed insurance agencies in Wilmington. That's because our customers love the personalized attention that we give to you. Let us help you get to a better state by visiting our website at ilminsurance.com. That's ilminsurance.com. Like a good neighbor, State Farm is there.
My name is John Hennett, commercial real estate broker and vice president of Eastern Carolina's Commercial Real Estate here in Wilmington. I also have a side hustle as a residential real estate appraiser. If you're interested in buying, selling, investing, or you're just curious about real estate, feel free to give me a call, 910-619-3430. But also, I think it's important that we all share our community pride for our hometown here in Wilmington. Small businesses are the lifeblood of our community, and collectively, they represent the largest employer in our city. Therefore, it's important we support small businesses like Eagle Island and Seafood on Highway 421, located between downtown and I-140. Sammy Flowers and his family have been in business for many decades and do a tremendous job with fresh produce, fresh local seafood, and great groceries. I shop at Eagle Island at least once a week, and I encourage you to support small business as well. Remember, with any real estate related questions, feel free to give me a call at 910-619-3430.
One Love Tennis started in 2013 to give back to young boys and girls. We now go through 460 kids a week that are learning about life skills, learning to succeed in life through academics and tennis. Putting those two together, if you do them well, you can write your own ticket. To get involved in this program, go to our website, one-love-tennis.org.
I just died in your arms tonight. There must have been something you said. I just died in your arms tonight.
All right, 910-299-7535 is our number. I want to give a big tip of the cap to my buddy Tanner Barth. He does sports over at WWAY. And in calling the Coastal Carolina UNCW baseball game last night, UNCW's got a press box, or you can't really see the people inside the booth if you were sitting below in the seats up underneath, as one of my buddies says. Up underneath. Up underneath. And he took a picture of just this beautiful head of hair that I have, and I posted it on social media, and all you see is the Wop Mop in all of its glory. I mean, that is one heck of a head of hair. Best in the business. It's such a nice head of hair that we are on radio, and you can't see it. Unless you're tuned in, of course, to our YouTube channel on Facebook and Twitter. We've got a video portion of the show that's available for you each and every day, so you can see this beautiful mug along with this great head of hair. It's my best attribute. Don't you feel just more comfortable today knowing that we have a commander-in-chief that cares for the people? I mean, he's done it for so long, 50 years, that he's come up with the same ideas over 50 years to solve the problems that he's been trying to fix for 50 years. People, please get busy living, because if you're not, you're get busy dying. I got stuff to do. I can't pay attention to Joe Biden all day. Yeah. Got dad duties, got side hustles. I got stuff to do. Actually, after the show here in just a little while, we're headed out to Atlanta, and that's where we'll be for tomorrow's broadcast, Kennesaw, to be exact, and we'll deliver a Freedom Friday broadcast from Kennesaw, Georgia, tomorrow from my brother-in-law's insurance office before we set our sights on another 3-game baseball series in Atlanta as we take on the Panthers of Georgia State. I was so distracted yesterday. Again, I could not catch the entire speech delivered by our fearless leader. So I caught the Cliff Notes. I went to a couple of people that I enjoy their opinions and their viewpoints and got their take on social media because, honestly, I got stuff to do. I can't just sit on social media all day or follow the news and then give commentary behind my keyboard, pretend like my opinions are more important than yours and that I'm always right and you're always wrong. I mean, but how could you argue against investing in American families? I mean, infrastructure investment that will allow you to put food on your table. Brought to you by the elites in Washington, D.C. I mean, he's bringing ideas to the table that will help improve the situations that we've been dealing with for, well, the 50 years he's been in office. New ideas, like making the wealthy pay for their fair share. But he delivers it in a way that is very compassionate, with a little empathy, throws in a couple of buzzwords here and there, and hell, he's not Donald Trump. So it's time to just take it. Bend over and take it. Ramrod anything they can through the pipeline. And at this point, well, he's not Donald Trump. He delivers it in a compassionate way, kind of like your grandpa. And most Americans are just happy to deal with it, whether it's good for them or not. And I guess time will tell. He's a gentle old man. He wears his mask, and he just wants you to be a good citizen for the government. Don't worry. Uncle Sam has got you covered. The government has got your back. Amongst some of the wish list proposals that were laid out there last night, of course, he wants the wealthy to pay their fair share. I'm not sure I ever heard that before. That is a new and bold idea. Coming from a guy who, again, the first thing that comes to my mind when Joe Biden stands in front of the podium with the presidential seal, and that is exactly, as I look at him and hear him speak, that is exactly the first word that comes to my mind when I think of him and watch him speak, and that is presidential, a leader in every sense of the word. In fact, I've got a little chill up my spine describing what I caught in bits and pieces this morning following last night's State of the Union 100-day speech to members of Congress.
You've got a Japanese boy coming over here, and guess what? He won the Masters. He won the Masters. He won the green jacket. You've got a Japanese boy coming over here, and guess what? He won the Masters. He won the Masters. He won the green jacket.
I get up in the morning and look at Jill and say, where the hell are we?
Come on, man. Joe Catenacci.
I want to thank you guys at Big Talker for everything you do. I'm a Navy vet. Thanks to you and your program, I found out there were some benefits out there I didn't even know I had.
Joe, you're the best. I appreciate you. I sit out of my garage with the radio on, and I listen to you. It makes me feel good to be an American.
Joe Catenacci. Joe Catenacci.
Hello, I'm Jeff Rivenbark with WWA News. Authorities say a North Carolina sheriff's deputy has died and another has been wounded after a shooting at a home led to a standoff that continued late into the night. The Watauga County Sheriff's Office said deputies were dispatched to a home in the Boone area yesterday after the homeowner and his family didn't appear at work or answer telephone calls. A sheriff's statement says deputies entered the home and were fired on. According to authorities, a deputy died at a hospital where he was taken after being shot. Authorities said the second deputy was still at the scene and law officers had the home surrounded after nightfall with what it called an active scene. In the case of a man shot and killed by deputies in Elizabeth City, the body camera video of the killing of Andrew Brown Jr. will not be released publicly for at least 30 days. While Judge Jeffrey Foster said the video was of compelling public interest, he worried public release of the video could harm the ongoing investigation into the case and pose a threat to administration of justice. The decision came yesterday, shortly after North Carolina prosecutors said that Andrew Brown Jr. had hit law enforcement officers with his car before they opened fire. Apollo 11 astronaut Michael Collins has died at the age of 90. He orbited the moon alone while Neil Armstrong and Buzz Aldrin made their historic first steps on the moon in 1969. Collins' family said in a statement that he died yesterday from cancer. While Collins traveled some 238,000 miles to the moon and came within 69 miles, he never set foot on the surface. And we now know the release date for a new movie that has been filming in the Cape Fear. The horror movie The Black Phone by Scott Derrickson is set to release in theaters on January 28, 2022. One of the writers confirmed this on Twitter yesterday. The movie is an adaptation of Joe Hill's short story. The flick stars Ethan Hawke. For more on these stories, head over to WWAY-TV3.com. I'm Jeff Rivenbark. Have a great day.
Happy Thursday, everybody. I'm WWAY meteorologist from Mel Carpenter with your Storm Track 3 forecast. We're going to see more dry and quiet conditions out there across the Cape Fear, and a nice warm-up on the way as well. We'll top off in the middle and upper 80s, close to 90 degrees well inland of the coast, and along the coastline, we're going to top off in the upper 70s, close to 80s. Not a bad beach day by any means. And the sunshine continues as we head into the upcoming weekend as well. Temperatures tonight are going to drop back down into the middle 60s, pretty mild, with partly cloudy skies. Get your full forecast on WWAY and WWAY-TV3.com.
This news and weather is brought to you by Two Men and a Truck. For your free quote, go to twomenandatruck.com. twomenandatruck.com.
Heading down the stretch here this morning, here until 10 o'clock each and every day, Monday through Friday at BigTalkerFM.com. Our mobile app available in the Apple iStore for your iPhone and the Google Play Store for your Android. Search Big Talker 106.7 FM. Take us wherever you may be. Could also pick up a podcast version of the show that the computer does what it needs to do just after 10 a.m. Eastern Time, and then just a few minutes after 10 a.m., it's uploaded automatically at joecats.com. That's JOECATS.com. Missed an interview, some commentary that you want to listen back to, maybe a phone call. Listeners contribute greatly to what makes this program what it is. That's at joecats.com. Drew Allen is with us here this morning from the Lone Star State. And Drew, native of California, and you migrated to Texas. Don't tell me you're one of those people that are swinging the state of Texas blue, are you?
No. Flip it, Joe. So I grew up in Texas, but I'm living in California. It's worse. It's worse than you can imagine.
I could imagine. And yesterday, in fact, we caught up with a chef from Southern California, and he was just giving us a bit of a description of what life has been like in La La Land. So let's get it from your perspective. Out in I love the state of California, but now that my family has all left there, selling their homes for like $35 million from what they bought it for, many, many moons ago, they relocated to the state of Florida. Give us a little insight on what the state of California, is it as bad as it looks like from the news that we see day to day?
Yeah, that's about the only true depiction you get from the media these days. So yeah, that's right. It's a state of sheep, Joe. Everyone just dutifully obeys Uncle Joe and Dr. Anthony Fauci, and if he tells you to wear a diaper on your head, they do it, and that's it.
Well, with that being said, I mean, I just want to thank, actually, the President of the United States, the federal government this week for providing us a few pictures from the CDC, the guidance, and the ability to give us the go-ahead to feel safe to no longer wear a mask while outdoors. It was, a pleasant news cycle that played out, just a couple of days ago when the commander-in-chief came outside of his White House, mask and all, by himself, fully vaccinated, and then he told us, as our fearless leader, that in fact, according to the government, it's now safe to be outside with a mask. Don't you feel a little bit better about things as you move through your day?
Oh, it feels wonderful to have my government's permission to live, eat and breathe, and that's really the fundamental problem, isn't it, Joe? Right? The Constitution's that contract between us and the government, and it says that we're the master and the government's the servant. And all of this boils down to the fact that too many Americans have accepted the government's new un-American experiment that undoes that which was done in the, of course, 1700s, and they're rendering us their servants and government's master again. It's absurd.
And, it's sad in that many people in our country are okay with that, in that so long as we use a couple of buzzwords, we say, hey, we're going to invest in American families and we want to save planet Earth, we say, hey, take our freedoms and our money. We've got no problem. You have good intentions. Half of our people think this way.
They do, and that's what's so alarming. We wouldn't be in this predicament, of course, if roughly half of Americans didn't, believe that. I think that people need to wake up and realize that, I wrote an article a little while back about Oregon, and it's getting worse and worse. Now they're locking them down again. I don't know. When is enough enough? At the end of the day, the government does this to us in part because we comply. We allow it to happen. So I think it's time for some civil disobedience, just like in the civil rights movement, because segregation was legal back then. And, we can't be victims anymore. We have to stand up and put it to the man, so to speak.
Well, and as you mentioned, the state of Oregon, I know up in Michigan, despite the CDC guidance, they're continuing with some of these mask mandates. We, in fact, still have a supposed mask mandate. In fact, our governor, thankfully, gave us and granted us permission to no longer, and to feel safe if we wear masks outside because, of course, we know the science, the data, and the experts are driving this entire thing. There are some states out there that continue to implement these mask mandates and shutdowns, state of Oregon being one of them. In Michigan, they want 2 to 4-year-olds to be required to wear a mask when out and about. I mean, I don't know how anyone in their right mind could be adhering to some of this stuff a year plus into this whole mess of a situation.
I don't either, and people need to quickly get some perspective on things. I keep thinking about this, Joe, and I really don't think in our history the American people have ever been abused so badly. Honestly, I would welcome King George III at this point because he was a more benevolent ruler and dictator than Joe Biden.
Drew Allen with us, a Texas-bred, conservative-based, California-based conservative. Oh, how does that all work? I'm interested to hear your story, Drew. I know that you worked in the fashion industry up in New York and Italy. I mean, I grew up outside of New York City and about 40 minutes outside in Jersey, and I've just got no will to ever go back to the Big Apple. And that was a place that I loved growing up. In fact, even when I moved to North Carolina, still loved going back once a year to experience, the big lights of the city, life in Manhattan. Such a cool thing. It's like the last thing on my mind as far as a destination to go to. It's pretty sad. The greatest city in our country has come to a place where somebody who lived and breathed it, grew up right around it, has no will to go back.
No, I don't either, Joe. I mean, I lived in New York City for a while. I lived in Milan, Italy for a while. I've lived in L.A. for a long time. Now I'm up in Napa County. I was an actor for many years as well and worked in the film industry. in addition. So, I've always been in the lion's den with a bunch of liberal Democrats. So I've had a front row seat to their insanity, which is kind of, I've come out with my conservatism intact, thankfully, but I can't see myself staying in California much longer, Joe, and, it's sad.
Well, in fact, many fellow Californians feel the same in that for the first time, whatever, California is going to lose a congressional seat based on the U.S. Census. Does that not tell you everything? A state that, the sixth world's largest economy on its own, along with the fact that you live in a beautiful place. It's got all sorts of, different things that attract so many people for so many different reasons. And you've got people fleeing by the tens of thousands. Doesn't that tell you everything about some of the policies and the ideals that have been put forth by big government and the leftists out there on the La La Land left coast?
Well, it does say everything, but sadly, like we were kind of discussing before, it seems like half of this country doesn't seem to, put the pieces together and understand that it's blue states and one party controls, states by Democrats that have these problems, but they can't seem to understand it. It's their policies, it's Democrat policies that do it. And let's hope that there are enough people fleeing states like California that aren't brainwashed, brain-dead liberals who are just going to go and vote for that stuff in a red state.
DrewThomasAllen.com is his website if you'd like to know more about Drew, some of the work he does out in California here this morning. Drew, let me ask you, you also, as you said, spent time across the pond in Italy, in Milan, in the fashion industry. What has happened to Italy as far as, the manufacturing, particularly within the fashion? China has pretty much taken over that entire country, right? As far as, putting people inside that country in the old villages and through the manufacturing plants, ports of entry. China is running the world, and Italy is a great example as far as the influence that they have had over parts of Europe, and now, of course, parts of our country as well.
Yeah, they've really done the same thing that we've done in the respect that we created it. We invited this problem that we now have, right? I mean, everyone wanted the cheap labor and things like that, and exported or imported the Chinese there to do the work. And it's eviscerating these economies, and it's very difficult to come back from now. And now we have the added dilemma, of course, because Trump had it figured out. And now we're just going back down the road of giving China everything they want.
Fresh, young, bold voice out in California. Drew Allen, Texas-bred, California-based conservative. Still wrapping my head around that, Drew. DrewThomasAllen.com. I believe you. Thanks for the commentary here this morning, and have a great day. I know it's a beautiful day out in California every day. Yeah, just stay safe out there in Looney Tune land.
You too, anytime, Joe. Thank you.
All right, we're a quarter till the top of the hour. We thank Drew for contributing to our program. Again, find out more about what he does at DrewThomasAllen.com. Guy who's been in the business, Hollywood, actor, screenwriter, film producer, working in the fashion industry. He's been all over the place. Reminds me of one of the lessons Vito Corleone taught us through The Godfather. Keep your friends close, but your enemies closer. You work alongside these folks in the industry, you know how they think, the way they operate. Though it's pretty simple when you view some of these policies that many of the leftists want to implement. It's for you, the middle person, and not us, of course, the elite. We're just going to elite no matter what the situation is. But for you, you need to adhere to us because we're smarter, better, got more money than you. So, in fact, we should have more influence and power over you. But we're going to invest in American families. We're going to spend $2 trillion so the government can create jobs. Go talk to your economics professor out there, Econ 101. He'll give you a little history lesson on how it fares when the government is in the job business, in the job creation business through the spending of, now here on the table, $2 trillion, another $2 trillion plan. But he is investing in American families. 910-299-7535. Caller, you're with us. Good morning.
Hey, good morning, Jeff. So it's going to end up being $10 trillion in new spending in almost the first 100 days
I
of
mean,
the current administration. If you actually sit down and calculate it, and there used to be a function for real GDP where you would actually take out government spending, because government spending is not considered, our true measure of economic output. And they've kind of done away with that in their calculations. They keep the G in the equation. Hey, I was just calling to see, man. I was looking on the news this morning and things like that, and I don't see where, Roy Cooper has come out and ordered the flag half staff for the deputy killed up there in Watauga County.
Ugh.
The courthouse down here, the flags are at full staff. There's a deputy killed in Watauga County. Bill Sappho hasn't ordered the flags locally to be lowered at half staff. These people have no support in the governmental structure, and we've got to get rid of these people who aren't supporting our law enforcement and who are supporting these criminals. They're trying to destroy the country and take over the country, and they're doing a pretty good job of it with the backing of the people up in D.C.
It's really sad what's going on within law enforcement as far as the number of officers who are either stepping away from the job, retiring. Eventually, this is going to come to a hoe, and eventually it's going to be like straight out Wild Wild West vigilanteism out there. You got to protect your own and, head out to the country and bury yourself in a hole because, eventually – a lot of these men and women are going to say enough is enough. Thankfully, we've got folks out there that are just keeping their head down and trying to go about their business in law enforcement as they do each and every day, trying to better the communities in which they serve. Yet we only see the negatives, of course, when an incident plays out like we saw in Elizabeth City, and then all of the noise that is associated with that. Because heaven forbid, we pump the brakes just a bit, exercise some patience, let the facts, the information, the details come out before, we jump to conclusions and, want to burn the officer at the stake, because that's where we're headed, and due in part to, as you said, the politicians who love to stoke the fire, the Maxine Waters of the world.
And the Joe Bidens and Kamala Harris, it's a top-down problem, and the Bill Sappos and the Kevin O'Grady's, and things like that, So would you want to be involved in law enforcement when you have no backing in A, the community who needs you most, and B, the people who are there to help you when you need help,
Well, to the mayor's credit, actually, yesterday when we had him on the program, because we asked about the shooting that took place on Kidder Street a month ago already, where
sure.
3 teenagers got slaughtered and 4 others were injured in a shooting at a house party. And the mayor actually, I don't know if he let the cat out of the bag, but poking and prodding about all sorts of things. He gave us more details as far as what the investigation is up to over on Kidder Street than the police chief has in 3-4 weeks since the incident. I don't know if he got scolded after he did that, but I was surprised that the mayor squealed just a bit as far as what the investigation from what he's hearing has led to at this point, because we haven't heard anything about it since the incident last month.
Sure, and the problem with that is great investigate, and they could have gone and arrested people. All those people who were at that party, you just charge them all with obstruction of justice. You don't want to tell us who was there. You're obstruction of justice. The problem we have here also, which has been a long-running problem with DA David, is we have a prosecutorial problem. He doesn't like to try. He doesn't like to try cases. He doesn't want to take cases on. He wants to. And I understand, freeing up the court system and not going through, lengthy trials if you don't have to. But there's a lot of pleading down to lower charges because he doesn't want to take a lot of things to court and do the hard work that he needs to do. And unfortunately, I've seen. As a plaintiff in the criminal justice system, the criminal justice system. I don't know what they're talking about. Criminal justice reform. The criminal justice system is clearly tilted in favor of the defendant, and on some level it should be. The presumption of innocence and things like that. But when you go in there with video evidence and put it in front of a judge, and a judge says, oh, this is nothing, and you're like, it's on video. And they're admitting to it, and they're like, oh yeah, we're going to dismiss the charges, and that happens more often than not. So again, there's no accountability on any level, and there's no reason for the criminals to fear because the jails are overcrowded, and they're not getting prosecuted anyway. So, but so everybody say a prayer for the family of
incredibly
there in Watauga, and how many police officers have died since George Floyd was killed?
No one knows. How about who would have thought? No one knows. No one knows that answer.
How many police officers died at a BLM protest in Dallas think 10.
Oh, yeah.
And that was, I mean, you talk about, an assassination. That was an assassination. That was pre-planned, strategically and pulled off. And everybody talks about it. It's just, whatever, And, don't get shot if you're a white guy by the cops because, BLM's not going to show up and help you there. Have a great day. And let's do something. Let's get the city fixed and let's get this stuff together. We can all do it together. Black, white, yellow, green, blue, purple. Let's all do it. Nobody wants to live in a crime-ridden city.
No.
And be told a bunch of lies.
Yeah, no doubt. Thank you for the call. A tragic situation, as the caller made mention of, out in the mountains this morning that we're hearing. Deputy killed. A second was injured after a 12-hour standoff at a home in Boone, Watauga County. Officers arriving on a welfare check at the home after the homeowner and his family did not go to work or respond to phone calls. Sergeant Chris Ward with the Watauga County Sheriff's Office died from his gunshot wounds. Another deputy, Logan Fox, shot. Conditions on his status unknown at this time. And then, of course, from the mountains towards the coast, we've got a situation playing out in Elizabeth City. Calls for the release of police body camera footage. Pete Callender broke down the law that was put in place in 2016 because prior to the legislation that was voted on, by every member of the Senate, was it just 2 votes in opposition, so meaning a bipartisan piece of legislation now being criticized by, Democrats, the governor, among members of the media, because prior to 2016, there was no policy as far as how you go about releasing body camera footage from law enforcement agencies. 2016 did that, providing some transparency in the system and leaving it up to the courts and some processes that are in place here in North Carolina. And other states have gone in a different direction and say 48, 72 hours after an incident, the footage needs to be made public. And then, of course, it's in the court of public opinion and not necessarily in the court of law on how things are decided. So the judge hears the petition yesterday. The debate continues over North Carolina body camera law. The footage will be released to the family, the son of the man who was killed, in the next week or so. It'll be 30 to 45 days when the public will gain access to it. Governor Cooper, the king, voicing support for changing the law surrounding the availability of law enforcement. State Senator Danny Britt, who we'll have on the program next week, argues that videos like the one showing Brown's encounter with police should remain private until a possible trial. Because, heaven forbid, he believes releasing information to the public could make jury selection difficult, and possibly, if criminal charges are ever presented and then there's a conviction, it could lead to a mistrial. And that's kind of where we've hit this snag. There needs to be a balance between the public's right to information and a potential defender's right to a fair trial. The slobbering media wants to know because they want the clicks to show their advertisers. They want to, of course, use it to back their narrative and agenda. The public wants to know so they can go on social media and be keyboard warriors behind a computer screen. And the question is, do they need to know right away? And ideally, if you allow the process to play out, then ultimately you'll see the footage. A person could potentially be charged with a crime, and then it's up to the state to prosecute that crime. Innocent until proven guilty, right? In the court of law, not the court of public opinion. And if we're going to go down that route, let's just head back to the town square and let the mob rule decide. That's the purpose of the judicial system. And now you want to argue if the judicial system is broken and whatnot. Okay. Well, there are ways in which you can work to get lawmakers who you believe in to change the judicial system, not just scrap everything and say, well, let's put it out there and let the public decide. Yeah, that's going to work out well for everyone because eventually the mob eats their own. They'll come for you at one point or another. So we hit the end of the program here this morning. We'll take one quick time out when we get back. Senator Kennedy of Louisiana actually has a recommendation. If you no longer want law enforcement in our country, he has a few ideas on who you could call, in fact, in case of an emergency. We'll get to his commentary to wrap up our program right after this here on the Big Talker FM.
We interrupt to bring you this horrible news. Experts say we'll see larger numbers and different breeds of mosquitoes to wreak havoc on your backyard, making this year one of the worst.
Anopheles and Culex variety of mosquito.
Yeah. Experts also say there is only one defense against this onslaught from Bugno Pest Control.
That's Mr. Bugno to you, pal.
Bugno Pest Control's mosquito-killing formula keeps your yard bug-free. Call Bugno Pest Control 910-367-2501 or visit BugnoPestControl.com. Take back your yard.
It's time for the Coastal Home and Lifestyle Showcase, Saturday, May 8th in the Middleton Park Extension on Oak Island from 10 a.m. to 3 p.m. Meet local business people who specialize in maintaining your home, outdoor living, and supporting your healthy and active lifestyle. Admission to the Coastal Home and Lifestyle Showcase is free. Live music, food, free samples, and giveaways. And you can register for a $200 cash drawing. That's the Coastal Home and Lifestyle Showcase, sponsored by Southport Magazine, Saltair Heating and Cooling, the Stateport Pilot, and the Southport Oak Island Chamber of Commerce. CoastalHomeAndLifestyleShow.com.
O'Leary's Automotive Repair has multiple locations in the area in Hampstead, Leland, the Myrtle Grove area, Ogden, and Wrightsboro. O'Leary's Automotive Repair, a trusted, locally owned business since 2006.
Hear Tom Goolsby on the Joe Catenacci Show.
People with common sense know that the entire theory of socialism is one big lie.
The Big Talker 106.7 FM.
Hey, this is Matt Ham, co-founder of Uprint and the co-host of Wake Up Our Faith, every Saturday and Sunday right here in Wilmington's Big Talker. We invite you to join with our nonprofit movement by participating in the Portable Faith Community. This is a $10 a month tax-deductible contribution, and you get access to daily encouragement, resources, as well as our prayer community. You can go to wakeupmyfaith.com to get subscribed and learn more. That's wakeupmyfaith.com.
Almost heaven, West Virginia.
All right, as we round out our program here this morning on the Big Talker FM, we'll be back tomorrow. Another remote broadcast that we'll bring to you from Kennesaw, Georgia. Headed down to the Peach State, Georgia, for the weekend to spend some time with my sister, her family, and for some Coastal Carolina baseball. We'll bring you a Freedom Friday broadcast from Kennesaw, Georgia, tomorrow. As we part ways with you here on this Thursday, hope you've enjoyed the program. Plenty to get to, and you'll get lots of commentary, of course, on the speech heard around the world yesterday by our fearless leader, Grandpa Joe. But before we go, for those folks that are interested in defunding the police, abolishing law enforcement from our society, Senator Kennedy has some words on who he believes you should call in the event you need law enforcement in the future.
I've said it before. If you hate cops just because they're cops, then feel free to call a criminal, call a meth head the next time you get in trouble. I just do not accept, nor do I think most Americans accept, that most cops are bad people. I've said it before. If you hate cops just because they're cops, then feel free to call a criminal, call a meth head.
Call a meth head. Call a criminal. If you are in fear of your life and you hate the cops, call a meth head. They'll come to your rescue. Call a criminal. Senator Kennedy, one of the best in Congress. We'll talk to you tomorrow.
Keeping Charlotte informed. The Big Talker 106.7 FM WFBT, Carolina Beach.